Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another evening of entertaining and exciting racing action and the one and only series we all know and love and that keeps the Skippy alive year in year out. That's right, we are back for another pair of rounds on the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly brought to you in sponsorship with both Musical Money Limited and the Old Git Racing Team. We continue our tour of the US of A for what is rounds 15 and 16, and where exactly have we made our way to? Well, we've made our way from West Virginia all the way to the neighbouring state of Ohio for the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course. Opened in 1962, this is a circuit that is absolutely enriched and enshrined in American motorsporting history, with the fact that over the course of its extensive time of existence, it has played host to most, if not every, major American road racing series, ranging from the IMSA SportsCar Championship all the way to the USF 2000, or in other words, the Skip Racing machines in real life, the US Formula 2000 series. But regardless of what it's played host to, the one thing the circuit has definitely provided throughout its extensive history is plenty of entertainment when it comes to racing action. With a wide variety of corners over the course of its 2.25 mile length layout, it is a circuit that lacks straights but makes up for it when it comes to corner variety. A grand total of 13 corners, and indeed there's plenty of madness to behold here because some of them are exactly known as the madness or the Esses sequence. But beyond that, we also have the infamous corners such as the Keyhole hairpin and also the Carousel, and what it means around here is that track position is going to be absolutely vital for our drivers if they want to come away with a major result. It's not to say overtaking is impossible, but it requires a lot of deft ability to be able to look for a move up the inside or around the outside, and also knowing that for every attack there will be a counter-attack, and that's why overtaking around here is going to prove painful at the very least. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action for Season 5 of the series. And as on YouTube, at youtube.com, and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in and catching all the racing action on a weekly basis. And if you are tuning in right now, don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing and who you're here on to cheer on today. And if you've had a bit of a difficult weekend, well, don't worry, we'll end your weekend with a smile rather than a frown, because there's nothing quite like ending a Sunday evening with plenty of racing action from our skippies. Now, in terms of our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, what we can see is at approximately what will be 30 minutes time, we'll have our 10-minute qualifying session, after which from 7:45 through to, 5 to 8, we'll then be making our way to the grid for the first of our two races. First up, as always, will be our sprint race. That'll be round number 15 in the championship, 20 minutes in duration, after which we'll take a brief 5-minute breather before returning to the grid at approximately 20 past 8 this evening for the round number 16 feet race. There, we had an extra 10 minutes on, or we essentially had another 50% on, so it'll be 150% of the original length, but the idea here being, of course, there is the all-important element of strategy, where drivers will need to be outsmarting each other, and goodness me, will track strategy be important today? Because overtaking so challenging around here, a strong undercut or a committed overcut could be the difference between victory or just missing out. But as we get ready to go racing, all your racing action, of course, brought to you by myself in the commentary booth. My name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be taking you on this journey throughout the entirety of the season. But speaking of the entirety of the season, we've spent quite a few rounds already catching plenty of racing action, but let's give you a recap as we make our way into this pair of rounds, exactly what's been going on. Because as we can see, we have continued our way around the globe. We began with a tour of the United Kingdom, then to mainland Europe, and well, recently we have been the US of A for what has been 4 race weekends. Last time out at the second of our American weekends, we kicked off the second half of the season with an absolute thrilling pair of races at what was done other than West Virginia's Summit Point Raceway. There, mixed conditions really played a major role, not necessarily in the sprint race, but most definitely in the feature race. And what we got to see over our 2 races there was a whole mixture of events which really have served to set us up for a treat today. Indeed, it could be what was the calm before the storm in the wet, and we could be seeing the storm today, even though we are expecting splendid conditions. But why exactly? Well, in terms of how the wins and the podiums were distributed in the sprint race of round number 13, it was a dry circuit despite light rainfall throughout, and we got to see our top 3 storm away at the front of the field, and it was Daniel Otuga who started on pole and ended up with victory. And despite the fact that Adam Miles was the eager beaver to take the lead of the race, in the end, as the swapping continued back and forth, Marcus Byfeldt played a bit of an outsider role in that group of 3, and in the end he was able to get involved. He put pressure on both Miles and Otuga, but Daniel Otuga held on to the lead despite the pressure, and he was the one able to steal the win on the final lap. Meanwhile, Marcus Byfeldt, he went full attack on the final 2 laps of that race, and in the end for him, it was a second place just ahead of Adam Miles, who missed out on pole position after what was a slow initial time in the 3-lap average qualifying, and in the end he was ruined and regretting what could have been a win in race number 1. However, he did openly admit in his post-round interview he was hoping for wetter conditions across both races. And so in round number 14, we got to see the rain really come down. And when it did, well, it set us up for an absolutely titanic round of racing there. And whilst we didn't quite have the absolutely crazy run of fall through to 18th from what was the sprint race being separated by 9 seconds, what we got to see was a top 4 running into the final lap that very quickly became a top 3. Because of the rain built up, well, the surprises are plenty, but Daniel Otuga was the one who made it back-to-back wins at Summit Point Raceway, with Steff Herrmann moving into second right at the finish as Adam Miles went on the attack, but unfortunately he couldn't quite take the lead, and a mistake at the final quarter, so go deep, and it was to Steff Herrmann to still wait the second place, and Adam Miles became Mr. Third Place at Summit Point Raceway. So that's how the podiums were set in the tricky conditions in West Virginia, but today is the 8th of February, and we are here at the Mid-Ohio SportsCar course. Of course, this is going to be a 10-minute open qualifying round, as you can see on the right-hand side there of the tower, and after today, well, we make it away to Long Beach Street Circuit in the US state of California. We'll be going as westwards as we possibly can in the country, and that's where we're going to wrap up our tour of the US of A on the 15th of February for round 17-18 before we do make our way to Australia for our final 3 race weekends. But coming into this round then, in terms of how the standings stand, let's take a look at that Drivers' Championship, shall we? And as we can see here, it's Steff Herrmann who leads on 457 points, and he now does have a 120-point advantage over Marcus Byfeldt. Steff Herrmann, given his early lead in the championship, that lead is not growing up at a rapid rate of knots, but his solid hauls of points are making sure he maintains it, and he has actually extended his lead for the Summit Point Raceway to the tune of an extra 13 points. Conversely, the man who sits in second at the moment, Marcus Byfeldt, his challenge is to try and hold on, because Adam Miles is now only 3 points behind. For Marcus Byfeldt, it was definitely a day of missed opportunities at Summit Point Raceway, and the same could be said for Adam Miles when he was looking for both wins, knowing as wet conditions would definitely favour him over the race distance. But instead, 2 third places meant that while he has closed onto the second place man, and they are so close right now they are inseparable, Daniel Otuga's the one you've got to watch, because he's moved into 4th, he's up 2 more places, and on 300 points, he is fast close to that top 3. And indeed, if they continue to scrap as they are, and Herrmann is able to make sure he stays within finishing distance of them, or reaching distance of the finish line, we should really say, then Steff Herrmann right now may just very casually move his way towards a championship crown, his first ever championship crown in this series, without winning another race. Indeed, he has only had 1 win this season as our championship leader, compared to, say, the 4 wins of Daniel Otuga, or the 3 of Adam Miles and Marcus Byfeldt. But to be fair, the consistency of Herrmann, and the ability to let everybody else force each other out of the running, that's the most important part for him. Brian Kelly, meanwhile, sits in 5th place. It wasn't a strong day last time out at Summit Point. Even on home soil, things did not quite click together. He's fallen down to 5th there, dropping 2 places. He's still ahead of Jeff Randall, who drops a place himself after what was a challenging day in the office last time out. He's now on 289 points, a bit ahead there of Nathan Wade, who really earmarks the second half of this top 15. He's on 209 points, best part there of what is none other than 34 ahead of Gordon van den Bergen. And Gordon van den Bergen did prove to be a very good contender last time out at Summit Point, and some great points coming his way, and that's leapt him into 8th and 10th. Christopher Garris Jr. has held on to 9th down 161 points, 10 ahead of Adam Tompkins, who rounds off that top 10. And it's Remco Pliers here, Titus de Jong, Peter Zuerpanki, George Matic, and Dennis Johansson who complete that top 15. And I do believe we did quite have George Matic on the grid last time out, and hopefully we'll get to see him back today. And the answer is yes, we definitely will, because he is back here once again, and that's absolutely great to see, because he definitely missed the racing last time out. But outside that top 15, where it went wrong for Dennis Johansson at Summit Point Raceway, and indeed a huge amount of frustration bubbled to the surface very quickly. Well, from his 93 points, we then do have 93 points for Chris Wayne as well, who gained 10 points. However, he is still behind Johansson based on result countback, with Johansson, of course, having that set of results at Brands Hatch that makes the difference. However, Wayne has taken a pole position this season ahead of Josephine Becker there, and well, the gap between the two of them only being 8 points. Then we do have Neil Gardner in 18th ahead of Martin van Ekkelen, and then Jesus Cabal rounds off that top 20. He's on 58 points, ahead of Marcus Dorner by a single point at this time. But as we can see there, the penalty points are also adding up for several of these drivers right now, and that's really bringing them into close contention. Kevin Budgeon, he sits in 22nd on 51 points, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from him as the season goes on, because he definitely has proven to be, as he's here today once again. He's proven to be one of those drivers who, whilst he hasn't raced a Skippy in a long time, when he is back on the grid, well, I can tell you one thing, the abilities have not gone away, and the rust is very quickly coming off. Meanwhile, he's ahead of Tom Payne by only 2 points. It's a further one to Tim Hendrickson, and well, when we do see Hendrickson back on the grid once again looking to give it his all, I can tell you one thing, the Dutchman is an incredibly quick quick driver. It's unfortunate we haven't seen him since the start of the season. Indeed, if he was on the grid from the very start, I can imagine he would be right up there inside our top 10. However, he sits in 24th ahead of Christian Perez, with Simon Wareham, Ludwig Sauer, Miguel Cuisina Martin, and then Frederick Neptun and Ronan Welling rounded off your Drivers' Championship top 30. But everywhere you look right now, there are plenty of stories unfolding, and it is very tight all the way from first all the way to 30th place. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our host circuit for today properly, shall we? It is, of course, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, the full layout of which we are running. Now, intriguingly, this is not technically the full layout of the circuit, more of that very shortly. Located near Troy Township in Morrow County of the US state of Ohio. A huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. And this two-dimensional image really gives you an idea of the complexity of the circuit and the fact that beyond the start-finish straight and the run to and from the keyhole, there are very little in the way of straightaways here, and therefore overtakes will either be done on those or they'll be done in the corners. Now, why exactly do I say that this is not technically the full layout of Mid-Ohio? Well, you may notice there just before the keyhole at the bottom right of the diagram at turn number 2, there looks to be some degree of a bit of a strange oval, something akin to Brands Hatch if you would in terms of how it's laid out, but a very small Brands Hatch, but it does look as though there perhaps it's also a chicane there going towards the hairpin. Well, if you spotted that, you'd be absolutely spot on. The original full course layout actually had a chicane before the keyhole, and then in what was more recent times, a straight was erected instead of the chicane in order to offer another track variety. So therefore, the technical full length course does have that chicane before the keyhole, but here today we are at the official full course, which is raced in most formats on an annual basis. And of course, this circuit home as well to the Mid-Ohio Drivers Program School, and indeed this is one of the circuits where many an American driver, and indeed even a casual public driver wanting to get their hands on their racing licenses, this is where you go in order to test your mettle at Mid-Ohio. But as the drivers roar the way along the start finish straight, they'll quickly come into the sweeping blind left-hander at turn number 1, and then up towards the keyhole they'll go. Hard onto the brakes with the downhill hairpin at turn number 2. It feels downhill at the apex, only to rise slightly on exit, then power the way all the way through the King of Free and up towards turn number 4. There they'll make the way into the affectionately nicknamed the Madness, or the Esses as they're properly known, at turns 4 all the way to 8, where there's going to be plenty of undulations and many of these corners are blind at the apex. Make their way through those. Very medium to low speed apexes, they'll then come into Thunder Valley at turn number 9, which will be a very quick right-hander before they roar the way through the valley in towards turns 10 and 11, where things get very narrow very quickly, and it is into the infamous Carousel, where there's so many different ways of cutting the corner. Indeed, you can go deep initially on entry to then have a late apex, you could go tight on entry to have an early apex, you can skid it any which way, but you've got to make your way out of that corner through the King of 13 to complete lap and do it all over again. Now, in terms of our rules, because we are today on a 10-minute open session, you'll see there's a slight revision. Car setup-wise, that hasn't changed. This is an open setup series with drivers bring the setup of their choosing to each and every round of racing. Car fuel loads will be restricted to 47% as always for all race day sessions, and as for our qualifying format is the 10-minute open format today. That means the session, when we go to it in approximately 3 minutes time, will have everybody on circuit together, and each driver's fastest lap set during the session shall set their grid position for the sprint race. Now, they must complete the laps within the 10 minutes. There is no overtime in this session, so as soon as the clock strikes 10 minutes, we are done, and we move straight to the grid for race number 1. And when we make our way to the grid, both races will commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, and one fast repair available in each race for our drivers. A drive-through penalty, if needed, shall be awarded at 17 instant points, get to 21, and our drivers will be disqualified. And how we set the grid for the feature race, or round number 16 today, well, as always, it'll be set based on the finishing positions of the sprint, but we invert the top 15. So what that means in layman's terms is, if you win the sprint race, you'll be starting 15th for the feature race, and we continue that inversion all the way down to your 15th place finisher, and your 15th place finisher starts on pole position for the feature, and those who finish 16th and downward, you guessed it right, that's exactly where they start for the feature race grid. Now also, the feature race, as we mentioned earlier, the fuel load will force out a pit stop, and there is one mandatory pit stop in the feature race in which drivers must refuel. We are not expecting any tyre changes, indeed the tyres on these skippies can last an eternity. And that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between, we're all here for the racing, so why don't we make our way back to the circuit side. And here we are, ladies and gents. We're not too long left in this practice warm-up session. And as all the drivers make the way on around right now, they are all absolutely gunning the bit here. But right now, the fastest man out there, well, it's Adam Miles. And he knows opportunities are gradually running out as he tests his pit lane entry approach there, doing it as quickly as possible. And indeed, that's going to pay Providence what will be in the feature race, because pit stops around here, the quicker you can do the stop, the more you're going to make ground. That can be said at any circuit, to be fair. But here, given how challenging overtaking is, you do need need to have the quickest possible pit stops you can, and he is the quickest driver at the moment in practice, at least, by the tune of 2 tenths. Marcus Byfeldt being the second fastest, and then Brian Kelly currently the third fastest here in practice, only a further 300ths behind. George Mattock back up to 4th now, as he makes his way on through. And then we have a newcomer who's currently in 5th fastest in the bright pink machine that's powered by sponsorship of Mazda. It is none other than Arjan de Vries. Well, we're very happy to see the Dutchman here on the grid today in the number 27, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do. And indeed, I do believe he's quite an established driver in the iRacing official Skippy races, so therefore we look forward to seeing what he can do here in our official league. Now, deeply keep in mind, of course, that this league does have several of the big names that you will see for the iRacing officials, and really, this league could be considered to be the who's who of Skip Barber Formula Racing, as we do see Arjan David making his way on around, and we look forward to what he's going to be able to achieve. He is currently in that 5th place spot, only 3.6 tenths off a pole position, if it were going to pole position here in practice, that is, but it's not, of course. That's qualifying coming up, but I can imagine the number 27 driver here, we're taking a bit of confidence from this, as Daniel Otuga makes his way away from the pit lane. He's at the very other end of the circuit, but he won't be for long, because without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to make our way into qualifying. 10 minutes, an open format. Who's going to put it on pole? Let's find out. And so here we go. 10 minutes begins to tick away, second by second, minute by minute. And as all the drivers immediately now get in their cars and jump their way out the pit lane as quickly as they can, respect to the pit limiters, of course. Well, we've mentioned time and time again, track position is vital. Qualifying is going to be so important here. Arguably, this is going to be the one circuit of the season where you want the best possible qualifying lap you can achieve. Everywhere else this season, there have been some circuits which have seen the importance of qualifying established, such as at Brands Hatch, our season opener. But here, you really do need to get the job done, because once you go beyond the keyhole, as Adam Miles there has had a spin already at the hairpin. Now, has he been aided on that adventure? I do not know. That is completely uncharacteristic there of Miles. We don't normally see that. Well, there's a first time for everything, but we don't normally want to see that happen there to one of our big contenders. That goes to show you right now, I think he's trying to push on as much as he possibly can, and perhaps things have just gone a little bit backwards. Well, as he brings himself up to speed, he'll tuck into the toe there of Brian Kelly. Now, one of the other questions we may be asking is, how important will the slipstream then be? Well, it is going to be a story of two halves. In the opening, what will be further lap, so essentially the run from turn number 1 all the way to turn number 4, you want the draft as much as humanly possible. If you use a draft, you will gain approximately about 4 tenths a second. The rest of the lap, you don't want the draft. You want to try and get into clear air through what is the Esses sequence, as we do see Miles making his way through. And by the time you get to Thunder Valley, you definitely want to be clear of another car, because this is where you need all the aero you can in this machine before you get to the carousel. But as he makes way onwards, we do see the 107 there pull it aside. That's going to be none other than what will be the car of Jeff Randall, stepping aside and tucking in behind Kelly and Miles, and he decides to pick up a bit of a draft there. So I think he's playing the game plan, which is he wants the slipstream for the first half of the lap, and he'll hope that he's able to stay with them. Alternatively, they might be able to pull a slight bit away as they go on to their first flying laps of the day. Well, as they all tiptoe the way around here, well, the clock has already taken 2 minutes. As quick as that, it is a long lap around here as well, which means whilst we are in an 10-minute open session, the fact of the matter is our drivers are only really going to get 4 flying laps in. This isn't going to feel too different from our other sessions, such as the closed free lapper or the average free lapper, which has felt more like a one-lap shootout, of which we have more of those later in the season. As our drivers go on to their first flying laps, we'll jump aboard with one of them for their second flying lap shortly. We look back to Tom Payne here, and right now, the Tom Payne Player Special Machine, I always get the vintage of the John Player Special Machine that Ayrton Senna, of course, ran with legendary drives in the black and golden car all the way back in his earlier stages of his Formula 1 career. And Tom Payne, they're definitely channeling that livery from all those years ago. And that's the wonderful thing about the Skippy. You can really put a whole variety of liveries on it. It is a very lovely platform to design a livery for, as well as to go racing in. As he makes his way into turn number 1, the number 88 driver here dancing his way through the opening corner, but carried a bit too much speed. The tyres in the end can't compensate for the amount of momentum he's carried, and he goes very sideways. But he's going to kick himself for that one. Immediately shakes the car from side to side, and that's him, I think, cajoling himself a little bit and also trying to get some dirt off of the tyres. So for Payne, it's definitely feeling a bit painful at the moment. He'll get himself back together shortly. Meanwhile, George Mattock right now, while the first drive is coming towards the end of a lap in due course as he makes his way on along, tucked in behind there, Christoph Garros Jr. And you will see those lap times come up on the left-hand side of your screen once they get their first laps of the board. We do have a grand total of what is approximately 26 drivers here today. And I can tell you one thing, it is crowded out there. There's quite a bit of circuit available, but I think a lot of our drivers here wanting to hurry up and get these laps in rather than buy themselves time. But as Marcus Byfeldt makes his way on through, and Byfeldt there setting the initial benchmark, there's going to be a 36.613, and Miles raised the bar immediately, and then Daniel Otuga does. They are all coming in right now, and indeed, all these lap times will suddenly appear on that tower as quickly as you can say pole position, and as they all come through, well, who set the benchmark the best? It seems to be Otuga, but as he makes his way onwards, well, we owe you an onboard lap, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to give you one because we're going to be jumping to none other than what will be the machinery of Marcel de Hint as he takes us around for a flying lap here of the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course. So making his way across that timeline at 95 miles an hour, he heads in towards turn number 1. Drop the gear there and just shut the car in, a small lift of the throttle, holding third, and now full throttle up to fourth gear and upwards towards the keyhole he goes. You'll notice here, whilst the tarmac is smooth horizontally, it actually rises and falls to a degree as they make their way towards the hairpin. And onto the brakes there, using the cone on the left, the 50-metre cone, to know exactly when he needs to brake, drops the second gear, now rolls the car out the corner, back to full throttle, and accelerated all the way up towards turn number 4. It's a bit of a breather, it's quite straightforward thus far, but the complexity is about to arise, and Marcel de Hint knows that as he comes through the kink of 3, straight lines it as much as possible to make sure he doesn't bleed any speed. Now looking over to his left-hand side for his brake marker in preparation for the start of the Esses. Very shortly, it'll be 3, 2, 1, onto the brakes there, 100 metres from corner apex, down to third gear. Bring the car in, keep it in the middle of the road, because now you need to open up turn number 5. Here, be very tight to the apex. Do not let the car roll out too much, because otherwise it will understeer away. Keeps it over to left to open up turn number 6. Then again, do the same through here. Put the car in the middle of the road to open up 7, and now over the blind rise you go, and then down into 8 before you get to Thunder Valley, and sharpen the brakes here for a small bit of weight transfer. And as he makes his way out of the corner, now into the valley, it's full throttle all the way through. Turns 10 and 11. The right into left here as he gets himself set up for the run in towards the Carousel. But here we can see the road starts to tighten. The approach tightens up as well at turn number 11. And now here's the Carousel. And well, how's he going to cut it? He brakes nice and early, about 100 metres from the point of the corner curb starting. And in the end, he goes for a nice late apex there, using the draft of the car in front to help out. That's Marimon Cladera, who he's using as a point of reference. As he crossed the timeline, de Hint was 20th. What's it going to be this time? He doesn't move up. He does improve his lap, however. It's a 38.354. Lovely lap there for Marcel de Hint, and we hope to see him move even further in this qualifying session with limited time left in the day. Because as we can see, all drivers right now definitely pushing themselves onwards. We've got 4 minutes left, and well, most drivers have done 2 laps already. They will be able to squeeze in perhaps 1 or 2 more. And Brian Kelly, he's right behind Adam Miles here. Well, right now, I think he's investing in the idea that Miles is going to be the man to beat here. And if he can stay with Miles, then Miles will naturally be the one who's going to move him forward. As Miles attacking the circuit there, my goodness, taking so much apex curb at turn number 8 and a bit of grass with it. Miles right now has got a bit between his teeth. He's currently the 5th fastest, but look how tight it is at the top. Only a tenth separated your top 5 effectively if you added 18 thousandths there for Adam Miles. And right now, well, we can't put this together as Brian Kelly follows him. Then I think he's going to have a bit of a hard work to do in the race. But to be fair, we know he does enjoy qualifying with clear air. He's not obsessed with the slipstream, unlike some drivers who feel they need the slipstream. But right now, Miles makes his way across that timeline, and he goes second fastest. It would be pole, if not for Brian Kelly and Nathan Wade, who pitch him in front. Well, Nathan Wade there in the all-purple machine. And remember, of course, he had all those technical issues earlier in the season. They have been resolved. And with his new equipment, he is now back out there, and he's immediately back to top times. He's got his second fastest as Miles now backs off and tucks in behind. I think this is going to be the mutual you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back moment as they all swap it around. And Brian Kelly now, he knows that he's got the time to beat to 35.581. Where is Daniel Otuga in this, I hear you ask? The Swedish driver, who always does impress in qualified typically. He's in 7th place. Now, I don't think this is through lack of trying, but I don't think he's been able to pick up the toe as much as he would like to, and therefore this is putting the best part of half a second off of the overall pole time. However, Dennis Johansson, who's back to the grid today, great to see the Dane here once again, and of course our defending champion in some respects as he makes his way onwards. But right now, as he roars his way onwards, indeed the Season 4 champion, indeed a one-time champion this series, making his way on around through the right into left, and it definitely has not been a strong defensive season, although he got off to a strong start at Brands Hatch, but right now I think he's just here to enjoy himself, and the number 10 trial can't be blamed for that, as he makes his way through that right-hander in the Race Driver 77 machine. Coming through the rest of the S's, well, working hard at the steering wheel here. And he is leaving Otuga behind a little bit, so Daniel Otuga perhaps doesn't feel as comfortable today here compared to where he has been at other circuits. Otuga, we know, is a very quick driver in race conditions, but normally qualifying has been also big here. But it doesn't seem as though he's quite happy with the way the car's flowing, as George Mattock now goes the fastest of everybody. Well, I'll be. Mattock right back up there. We know he's been targeting getting himself right towards the podium over the course of this season. He's impressed all season long. And well, right now, can he hold on to pole before it's said and done? Not quite, because Steff Herrmann then jumps to the top, as does Arjun de Vries. And well, it right now seems to be your championship leader who's going to be in contention for the top spot. He's at a 35.341. Where's Brian Kelly? He's parked up. He's done and dusted. Adam Miles carries on with 1 minute 20 left on the clock. I don't think he's going to get this next lap in, but he definitely has not improved on the previous one. And I think he might have decided to essentially back off of that one in the hope he's going to squeeze one more lap in. It's going to be very close if he's going to do this. We will see what he's going to be able to do. It will be what will be by the smallest of margins. He may get to that timeline, but we will see. Further down, well, currently out of your 24 drivers here today, we do have Tom Payne, who is the lowest placed, 4 seconds off the overall pole time, but still trying to find a bit more time out there, with Maron Cladera improving to a 38.076. As we see Payne, they're taking way too much curb at turn number 12, and that upsets the car, but I think Rene's just trying to find the natural line for the carousel, which is far from easy. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gents, when these drivers make it look easier than most, as he makes way in towards the blind left-hander 1, with 30 seconds left on the clock, he won't be finishing this final lap. Who is going to get one more lap on the board? I believe Mario Farag there. He's midway through the Esses. He's not going to make it to the finish line on this. What about at the other side of the circuit? Well, we do have Roddy van der Meijden. He's parked up, so he's decided enough's enough. Nathan Wade's coming on through. Is Adam Miles going to squeeze this in? He is going to try to, as Marcus Byfeldt goes second fastest off camera, only by 14 thousandths off a pole. Here comes Miles as Wade's into the pit lane. Miles crosses the line. What's it going to be for Miles? It's pole position for Adam Miles. It's a 35.235. And he gets in right at the close, and I don't think anybody else has been able to improve. Miles just steals away pole position. That is robbery of the season, and it's time to head to the grid for race number 1. So as they all make their way onto the grid for round number 15 in the championship, this is how they'll line up for the 20-minute sprint at Mid-Ohio. Adam Miles there, cheekily stealing away pole position with the perfectly timed lap of 35.235. Took pole by a tenth over Steff Herrmann, who lines up second. Behind the championship leader, it's going to be Marcus Byfeldt, the second place man at the moment, and he needs to chase down those front two. The Swedes are going to be joined by the Dutchman, new to the grid today, but we're very happy to see him at start of that second row. That's Arjun de Vries. Then we do de Vries, I should say. Then it'll be George Mattock starting in 5th, at just ahead of Brian Kelly, with Mattock achieving a season-best qualifying performance. Well done to him. Nathan Wade begins this one in 7th, ahead of Daniel Otuga, and then behind them it will be Roddy van der Meijden and Kevin Budgeon, who complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, behind the Briton, it is going to be Jeff Randall in 11th with his weaker qualifying performances of the season, but to be fair, given how tight it was in the end, 8 tenths there will not feel like that when he goes racing. Dennis Johansson starts in 12th there, also a difficult qualifying session, ahead of Christopher Gerrits Jr., the Swede being followed up on the 7th row by Gordon von den Bergen. Then we do have Frankie D starting in 15th place as his performances continue to move forward gradually, and he's ahead of Chris Wayne there by only 2 tenths. The Old Git Racing team drives 16th, just ahead of Simon Wareham, and it's Marcel de Hint who rounds off your 9th row. On row number 10, completes that top 20, it's going to be David Elliott, the Irishman, just ahead of the Briton of Joshua Harley, and then outside that top 20 on row number 11, the penultimate row, it's Peter Suapanki and Mario Farag, and then we will have behind the Spaniard, Pedro Maron Cladera, and what will be Tom Payne there, completing your 24 car starting order. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's definitely an interesting grid here. We have got some huge names right at the front of it and all the way through the field. We have got some big stars who perhaps not qualified as well, but as Adam Miles knows right now, he starts on pole, he's got the inside line, and he's got the shortest run towards turn number 1. Can he make some magic happen here for the first time today? Well, the lights go on. We're about to find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. And it's lights out, away we go as our drivers get the race underway for round number 15 of the championship. Miles then gets a good start, but Steve Steff Herrmann immediately down to racing line as Miles gradually comes across, defending but also converging little by little. And as all the field makes its way in towards the opening corner, some cheeky moves being made nice and early on as David Elliott fighting with Marcel to hit before they even cleared the turn 1 apex. But up towards turn number 2 they go, up towards the keyhole. You see Miles right now holding his ground as Herrmann and Byfeldt are starting to figure out where they want to be in this running order. The further back, that's almost 3 wide there. It's on the outside. That's going to be Kevin Budgeon trying to go all the way around the houses as Roddy van der Meijden says to him firmly, you're not coming through. And Budgeon and Randall now looking at each other quizzically, wondering, okay, who's going to back out on whom? But as they power their way along through turn number 3 shortly. We can see the Van der Meyden trying to give the toe to both drivers, getting them to fight nice and early on so he will be safe. Adam Miles, meanwhile, has got Steff Herrmann looking around the outside of him in towards turn 4, but he wants the track position early. As meanwhile, Nathan Wade there to 3 wide. Oh, there's contact. It sends Wade round, and so's another driver as the field splits. They all take a race action. Oh no, that's going to be there. David Elliott going sideways onto the grass, but he survives it just about. And there's further contact. Marcel to hit his turns there. Who was he turned by? I'm not 100% sure. And Pedro Caldera goes around as well. And meanwhile, that's also Joshua Harley coming to the stop. It's all gone so very wrong in amongst that group. And I think it was just one car going sideways and triggering off a chain reaction. We'll get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, going to Miles, they're already through into Thunder Valley. Goodness me, how long that incident took to resolve itself. And right now, we're miles ahead of Herrmann, Byfeldt, Vreed, and also Matuk. But you can see there, this top 5 has got Brian Kelly coming along with it, so it's really a top 6. And then we do have a growing 1.4 second gap to Dennis Johansson. So after one lap, Adam Walsh, your pole sitter, continues to lead. He's bringing Steff Herrmann along for the journey. Then we do have Marcus Byfeldt in third, ahead of Arjun de Vreed. And it'll be George Matuk and Brian Kelly completing your top 6. 1.6 seconds behind is Dennis Johansson, who sits in 7th, haven't started in 12th. He's had a brilliant start to this race. Had a Gordon van den Bergen, with Christopher Gerrits Jr. and Frankie D completing that top 10. And D, to be fair to him, has done a phenomenal job of this race start from 15th to 10th in the space of the opening lap. Could this be the time he finishes inside the top 10 for the first time this season? We look forward to seeing him try. Meanwhile, we do see there in 11th place Chris Wayne as Brody van der Meyden and Kevin Budgeon go 2 wide, going down through the keyhole. And as they roar the one out, well, right now Budgeon on that tyre to exit line here on the inside. He's got to be wary of the fact he is naturally going to need the slipstream of the guy in front now to feel a bit safe. However, what we can see is that right now Chris Wayne is sharing the toe between the two, but Jeff Randall's now going to make it 3 wide here. He says, okay, it's my turn, as Budgeon tries to come across. Randall storms his way through the pair of them, but now looking around the outside here in towards the Esses. Well, he's going to be on the inside in towards turn number 5, and Budgeon on the outside. Is he going to try and stay there? He is, to make the inside of turn number 6, but he's going to have to back off there because he'll need to defend versus Brody van der Meyden. The Dutchman right now on the back of him, and then we see Nathan Wade and Simon Wareham all together as they come all over the rise and down in towards what will be Thunder Valley. But Nathan Wade, after that turn early on, he's now trying to take a turn for the better and trying to move forward. However, he's the biggest loser of this race, with 8 places get lost compared to Daniel Otuga, meanwhile, who does have 13 places lost, the biggest of the ultimate loser after what happened at the start. It's got very backwards for Otuga, but there's still time to try and make up the ground. Indeed, if he can get himself all the way through and into the reverse grid positions, which will be none other than the top 15, and then he has a chance in race number 2 to bank some key points. But looking back to your leaders, he goes on to lap 3. Miles right now controlling the narrative up front, and well, we do normally see the swap back and forth, but I wonder here whether Miles will perhaps be a little bit more eager to try and just gap the field a bit more for the purposes of this race, where fuel saving is not as important. Brian Kelly, he's looking at the inside of Matuk, who doesn't close him down in the end, so therefore Matuk wants to work with Kelly. I think by these two have definitely wanted to be mutually partnered, so that way they'll be able to catch up to de Vreed and Byfeldt. However, making the way along here, it's getting a little closer as they come in towards turn number 3. One of them's going to have to give way eventually. Matuk on the right, Kelly on the left, and in the end it's going to be Brian Kelly who's going to have the inside line in towards turn number 4. And Matuk here right now, I think he wants to still stay in the running. He's trying to get Kelly to back off, but neither driver is listed to the other at this point. Well, this is classic 2 wide racing as we go. Fair and square between them all, and right now the top 4 in front are not really breaking away. There's still going to be 2 wide coming through turn number 7 in towards 8. It is lovely racing between them right now, and well, as they emerge, a little bit of an overrun onto the curb there from Brian Kelly guarantees the spot in towards Thunder Valley, but he drifts a little bit, and now George Matuk here is going to have the better run up towards what will be the narrow part of turns 10 and 11. But on the inside to outside, he has to back off there as Kelly has to sweep back in, as otherwise he'd be going to the grass, and therefore Matuk losing the position, but enjoying the battling. Further back, Christopher Gerrits Jr. on the back of Dennis Johansson. And Johansson right now starting to try and pull away a little bit as we look back from the rear of your number 10 and weaving his way between turns 12 and 13. And Johansson right now really the second pack leader, 2 seconds off of George Matuk at this point. I think he wants to catch up to them. However, Kelly and Matuk have actually left themselves with a 1.2 second gap to de Vreed, so therefore it may be the situation they're fighting has cost them more and more time, and we might actually see them fall backwards, and suddenly we almost get a repeat of Summit pointing away from the sprint race, where we are going to have potentially 5th all the way through to 16th place, all conjoined within the space of about 4 seconds. But a little bit of a lock up there from Dennis Johansson as he made his way through the keyhole. And well, thankfully he's able to get back together just in time. But further back in this order, we see a bit of an exchange. Nathan Wade fighting with Kevin Budgeon and Chris Wayne. And well, they're going to go 2 by 2 now in towards the kick of 3. as we do see them swap in places. Well, front there, we do have Gordon van den Bergen going at 3 wide with Gareth Jr. and also Dennis Johansson. Johansson on the outside. Gareth Jr. in the middle there, backs off 9. He can't perform the Moses manoeuvre, otherwise it would be tantamount to disaster. As they come over, we can see Gordon van den Bergen going all the way around the outside, and the Sickhead Racing driver refusing to back off, absolutely throwing himself into that space. Lovely bit of positioning there from Van den Bergen. He knows the risk and he takes the reward as a result. As meanwhile, back at the front, we do see your top 3 starting to drop. Arjan de Vries. Looks like de Vries right now can't quite stay with them, at least at this point in time, but you never know what you might be able to do. There's still plenty of time in this race, and of course, we're not even into the final quarter yet. We haven't even made it halfway through, so a lot of this right now is positioning, but it does feel a little bit more aggressive compared to your typical swapping back and forth. But I suspect here at Mid-Ohio it is drivers trying to really make statements to each other, which is, no, I'm taking this place versus you need to stay behind me. They have to be a bit firmer here, given the fact that the race line is a very restricted line. On to lap 5 they go, and as we do, we take a look back in time at what exactly happened at the start of the race for several drivers, including what happened to Tom Payne. And this was in towards turn number 2, so Payne on the outside here in number 88. He made his way through the corner. I think he's going to get the power down, and he's going to have a brief trip off to the grass. So he decides to run wide. I think that's cold tyres there, and just a little bit of over-eagerness. But the bigger question, what happened to Otuga and Wade? This was 3 wide with Kelly on the inside. They made the way towards turn number 4, and Otuga was on the grass there. Now, was there a small touch with Otuga and Wade when Otuga took to the grass for a brief moment? Well, that triggered off the big incident that we saw. Can we get on board with Daniel Otuga? The answer is yes. And this was Daniel Otuga as he made his way in. And there was the contact. You saw it on the front right tyre hitting the rear flush with what was Wade's car. And I think that's what upset Otuga's car. And then saw them both end up into the grass. Albeit Wade was able to carry on a bit more what was confidently compared to Otuga, but both drives the end, and Otuga, as he came together, muscle to hint, seemed to come across. Oh, we didn't catch that, going up into the air. That was Maribel Cladera, and Daniel Otuga in the end will definitely there go for a bit of a nightmare moment. And well, it all went wrong for so many drivers, but meanwhile, those it went right for have definitely broken away to a degree. But that was the big incident of what was lap number 1, and since then things have been relatively calm. Although as soon as I say that, where is Dennis Johansson? He has disappeared from the running order. He's been towed to the pits to look up a content booth window, and well, the answer for that is here's a replay to find out. So this was Dennis Johansson battling with Gordon van den Bergen. They made the way through the Esses and get ready towards the end of it. And a small tap there. And well, that sent Dennis Johansson around as he was trying to battle around the outside of van den Bergen. And I think he tried to close it down, but it all went backwards. And that was at turn number 8. And Johansson after that with damaged suspension and wasn't going anywhere. So he had to tow to the pits. With that, ladies and gentlemen, well, there's been a bit of drama, and right now we're hoping there's not going to be too much more drama for a little bit of time. It is always good to have drama in episodic pieces. Meanwhile, Jeff Randall and Kevin Budgeon looking at each other as Wade is currently the 10th place man, and this group right now definitely getting more and more intense. But from them, looking back to the front of the field, Miles, Byfeldt and Herrmann, they have broken away from de Vries to a second, and then we do have Kelly and Mattock still squaring off. That's going to be your run for 6 places. And then we do have Van den Bergen a little bit further behind. But there we can see 3 wide. That's Randall versus Budgeon versus what will be none other than Nathan Wade. And in the end, Kevin Budgeon right now trying to clear them both. But Randall then gets back in, coming in towards the Esses. And Jeff Randall right now using all his experience, all his nuance in the skippy to know how to put himself right at the front of the group. I think he feels as though he might be better off leading this pack as he makes his way through the madness as he gets ready for Thunder Valley. Well, right now it's 1.2 seconds to Frankie D up the road. If he can catch up to D, then suddenly they'll be bringing themselves into the fight for 7th through to 9th. And we will then have what we could join in the several packs all in one go. And then again, as they come through in towards the carousel right now, Randall running so close to the wall there through turns 10 and 11. I think there was almost a bit of a brush with the walls. Randall right now definitely driving on the absolute limit. We continue to look back from his car, looking towards Kevin Budgeon in the number 18. But the body language right now, the way this camera has been shaken about, is definitely a little bit less smooth than we normally see from Randall. And I think he's in a bit of a mood to hurry up to catch up to Frankie D, because I think they're all worried that they're going to lose that group up the road. And particularly as Frankie D runs wide, Randall also runs wide there, so they're all running a bit wide. We're coming up towards turn number 2. All these drivers right now all pushing it to the limit. They know they're into the second half of this race. And Kevin Budgeon, meanwhile, he just wants to push himself forward and get more involved. Nathan Wade's going to be on the inside there of Randall as quick as that. As meanwhile, we can see Chris Wade a little bit further back watching this with eager anticipation. With the old Git Racing team driver there in the green and yellow machine. Well, he just going to carry on his way. He'll pick up the side draft there of what will be Budgeon's car, but in the end, Wade tries to put himself to make it 3 wide in the middle of them. That's not going to work, so Budgeon comes into the middle of the road. Wade now gets the overspeed here. It's going to be diagonal 3 wide in towards turn number 4, and that is effective 3 wide down to break him, but Randall sweeps out the outside of the pair of them and says to him, no, I know what line I'm on, you'll tuck him behind me. So Jeff Randall here continues to lead them on through, and now only 1.5 seconds still behind Frankie D despite the fighting. I think he's trying to get the message to them. Let's catch up to the guys in front. Let's stop fighting each other, but I don't think they're getting the message. Indeed, high-speed messaging here in the Skippy is not necessarily advised. They can't send text messages to each other. I mean, it's not with the way they position their cars, and also some of them will be on the radio to each other, particularly if they're teammates. They'll all be talking things through and trying to work out how they move up to the next group. As we look here to Peter Suapanki, who's trying to make sure Brody van der Maiden does not get past him for 16th place. They're not in eligibility right now for what will be the reverse grid for race number 2, but if they were to catch up to this man, Marifrag, they would be, because he right now, if things were to finish as they currently stand, he would be your pole sitter for race number 2 here today. So he's in an important place. But meanwhile, we look to Randall, Budgeon, Wade and Wayne. Chris Wayne staying right at the back of this group. He does not want to get involved. As Randall there, as Budgeon is inside through turn number 1, goes a bit deep there. I think there might have been a small touch. And as they now make the way out towards the Keyhole, Randall falling backwards 2 places and Wade looking good. Foreground of the camera shot. This is going to be Garros Jr. on the inside, defending versus Vondenbergen, who's trying to go all the way around the outside to take what will be that 7th place. That's not going to happen. Instead, he's going to have to wait. And indeed, the switching back and forth here. But he definitely does have a tinge of aggressiveness to it compared to the switch we normally see. This is not necessarily mutually working together. I think they're all really fighting each other right now, as we do come back to what will be the front shortly. But stay transfixed here for the moment for what will be the 2 wide. And with Frankie D watching this, trying to observe who to bet on. And then we do have what was a 3 wide, now back to a 2 wide. With Wade, Budgeon and Randall together, and Chris Wayne still watching from behind. And Jeff Randall trying to go around the outside of Budgeon, but this time goes a bit too deep over the rise as he exits 5 and in towards 6. He's on the inside there. Do they give each other the space to cooperate? It didn't go quite right earlier on, of course, for Gordon Vandenbergen and Dennis Johansson at that very corner sequence. But in the end, it has worked out for these guys. But from them, let's come back to the front of the field. Adam Miles still leading the race. He has not given up the lead since the very start. Marcus Byfeldt has returned to second ahead of Steff Herrmann, so these two have swapped their places on around. But otherwise, there's been no change. He's right aboard the 3rd place man. He takes us around for a flying up of the circuit this close. Well, you can definitely feel right now your number 19 driver throwing everything he can at this, but he rolls his way towards turn number 1. Well, for Steff Herrmann, is he going to do what he's done in most rounds since taking that sizable gap at the top of the championship? Is he just going to settle for 3rd here and let the 2 drivers in front really do the fighting? They will gain a little bit of ground on him, but a 3rd place is still worth a lot of points, and also if he keeps it clean, he does pick up some bonus points. The clean race awards are awarded, plus also points for fastest laps. That's why sometimes actually it's better to perhaps just simply stay out of the trouble, and you'll gain just a few more points that way. But Herrmann falling back in, that might be a sign of what he's planning as they power their way along, getting ready for turn number 4. Right now, these 3, they seem to have settled into a bit of harmony. Byfeldt definitely over the back of Miles, but not looking to try and make a move, just simply saying to him, look, I'm here, just focus on your lines. And Herrmann a bit further back as he just gets set to see what's going to happen in front and whether there's an opportunity right at the end. Rolling the way out now of the Esses, we look back to what will be that ongoing battle between Budgeon, Randall and Wayne. Nathan Wade actually has got to the head of this, and it looks like Wade's pulling away now. Budgeon and Randall, well, they have really entrenched into a bit of a battle between them, but hold the phone on that, because we do have David Elliott here on his recovery drive, trying to make his way past Tom Payne in towards turn number 4. This is going to be for 19th place, after Elliott had that trip to the grass here on the opening lap, and well, the answer is he's going to get that done, as Payne in the end carries a lot more momentum through the corner, and well, Elliott on a very tight line through turn number 5. That's going to cost him a lot of momentum. But then David Elliott does get the move done there, so nice work from him, moving up to 19th in their battle as they try to catch up to Daniel Otuga, who is now 8 seconds up the road. But just in front of him is the man who's almost a lap down. That is Pedro Maron Caldera, after what was his huge incident earlier on. And well, Caldera has been to the pit lane for repair work, as is Marcel de Hint, but both back out there. Sadly, Dennis Johansson's car is still being repaired in the pit lane. It may be unclassified at this rate. From then we come back to the front, and with 5 minutes to go here, well, 15 minutes has flown by just like that. Byfeldt and Herrmann at this point probably think to themselves, okay, if there's a plan, we now need to start executing it in their own unique way. They're not teammates, of course. They are all rivals. There's no teams championship here. But as they make their way down this long stretch, they'll be thinking to each other, right, how do I work with the guys in front to get nice and close, and then I break away from them by making a move? Byfeldt, of course, very wary of that. Miles wary of it. They all are. They're all very used to these situations. And as those three go on through, well, meanwhile, Brian Kelly and George Mattock, they are still together here, trying to catch up to Arjun de Vries. For that, Gordon van der Bergen holding off Gerrit Studio and Frankie D for now. Although, as I say that, Gerrit Studio looking up the inside, and D still right there with them. And understandably for Frankie D here, I think his thought process is, well, I'm already going to finish inside the top 10. It would be a season best result here for Frankie D if he's able to put this together. But the number 8 driver now has also got me thinking to himself, what if I just take 1 or 2 more places here? It's always the temptation, is it not? As a driver, you have an angel on one shoulder who says, don't do anything else, don't risk it. And you have the devil on the other shoulder who's really poking you with his trident to essentially say, no, go for it. You really should go for it, because as a racer, if you're not chasing down points, if you're not chasing down positions, well, are you a racer? Well, yes, you are if you're playing smart, to be fair. But of course, there's that little devil that always is giving you a little jab and says to you, just go a little bit faster, go for something more. As he makes his way onto the straight right now, Frankie D, of course, doing everything right, and he's come a long way since the start of the season. And right now, that top 10 is almost coming to his hand. There'll be some huge points the first time he's in it. His way through that left-hander. Well, a bit of a run wide there for de Bergen. Gerrit Jr. as well, knowing the best to run. So D here sees the door is open. He's going to pick up a big run here in towards turn number 2. 3 wide they go into the braking zone. Can D get it stopped in time? Yes, he can. Van der Bergen right in the middle there. He's squeezed a little bit, but in the end, Gerrit Jr. goes wide there with the run of the road. The off-camber calls him to trip, and as they make the way down towards turns 3 and 4 now, we're going to see Van der Bergen and Gerrit Jr. come back here. So what does D exactly do? And the answer is he puts the car in the middle of the road, and he says there's only room for 1 at a time, folks, not 2, not 3, but still they are going to go 3 wide as they make the way onwards. Gerrit Jr. and Van der Bergen getting ahead of D, as D just simply steers clear. But of course, this fighting, look what it's brought into the pack. It's Nathan Wade now, also Jeff Randall, Kevin Budgeon and Chris Wayne. They have all caught up as they make the way on the round, and this is right now the battle for 7th all the way through to 13th that suddenly emerge, and it is going to get very tight and tender as Wade has brought Randall, Budgeon and Wade in, but now can he stay ahead of them and make more progress? For Nathan Wade, this has got to feel like a double-edged sword. He's made the ground, but he's brought everybody else with him on that journey. As he looks up inside, there's contact with D, and it sends D round, and in the end, there's going to be evasive action there for what will be Chris Wade, but unfortunately it doesn't work out. Kevin Budgeon as well, and they've made some contact there, and Frankie D's got around even further. Oh my goodness, and in the end that was very close, as Daniel Otuga just managed to avoid that, completely blind over the summit when he made his way over it, so he would not have seen. All you have seen is a yellow flag. He would have seen that was a car was parked right in the middle of the road, or in the middle of the racing line I should say, and thankfully it didn't come to tears. But for Frankie D, it definitely has been a big upset there. Contact with Nathan Wade, and that first top 10 of the season is not quite coming into his hands in this race. He's got a hope for more in race number 2, but with that 18th at the moment, he's going to come into the pits due to repair work. I suspect he'll be outside the top 20 when this one is done, and his job has just been made that even more difficult. But as our leaders make their way on their penultimate lap, we take a quick look back at what exactly happened there, and this was on board with Nathan Wade, I do believe, as it all kicked off. So this was Nathan Wade making his way in towards Thunder Valley, looking up the inside. Door was open, but as he came on through, just had to make a slight micro adjustment there, hit the apex curb. It upset the steering angle of the car, and that's what sent Dion around. Very unfortunate, but a small innocent mistake. All he could do at that point was Wade was just drive on. He couldn't stop. He couldn't do the gentlemanly thing, because otherwise he would have caused an absolute secondary incident. So therefore, doing the right thing, although unfortunately, I think there'll be some words after the race with regards to that one, but I suspect he may own up to it given what's happened there, at least what our camera angle suggested. But to be fair, that's why we have stewards, and we're just in the commentary because they have access to every camera angle, whereas we only have access to what we see on the broadcast. But as Miles, Byfeldt and Herrmann all stay together, 4 attempts separating this trio, and 1 more lap between them and victory for one of these drivers. But they're all going to be on the podium, surely. It's just what order are they going to be in? As behind, Jeff Randall at the inside of Gerrit Jr. there now for 8th. His next target is Van der Bergen as Gerrit Jr. right to the back of him. From them, back to the front. Last lap, 40 seconds left on the clock. We will achieve 13 laps, and that alone in this sprint race. And as they roar their way up towards turn number 2 now. Well, Byfeldt and Herrmann have been very patient all the race. Miles, to be fair, has had a bit of a pace advantage as we saw in qualifying, but now he's got to really show what he can do here as they come through the right-hander of the Keyhole. Behind, Arjun de Vries has been caught up to by Mattock and Kelly. They've got a freeway fight for 4th place going on. We are keeping one eye on that, but we are staying focused on the leaders here as they power the way onwards. You're looking back for your race leader of Adam Miles, and here comes Byfeldt. Now, which way does he go? He goes around the outside, so he's going to take the long way around initially, but it'll give him the inside of the mid portion of the Esses. Miles, meanwhile, defending that inside, 3 wide. Steff Herrmann decides to go for it as well, but Herrmann backs out there. He knows it's not worth it. He just wants to put pressure onto Byfeldt, see if he can get Byfeldt and Miles to make a little bit of a mistake together. But here they go, through the Esses, 2 wide still, coming in towards turn number 6. Miles on that inside, then he'll switch to the outside here. He's just got to hold on for another corner on the outside, coming over the rise of 7. If he can hold on to this, then coming into 8, he is going to be the lead car as he comes into Thunder Valley. But look at Byfeldt trying to force it all the way around the outside with the off-camber and entry there, just calls him to roll a little bit deep. Miles still ahead for now as they make their way in towards the valley. 2 wide they end here. Both drivers are fully committed to the bit. They'll have to respect each other. They will have to bleed some pace. Miles down the outside. Byfeldt just holding the apex curve, but into the carousel. It's a right-hander and the checker flag awaits them. Miles gets ahead there, parks the car on the apex. You can see Byfeldt tries to come back, but he can't. Miles is in his face, and as they make the way down to the final corner, it is going to be a win for the 85. Adam Miles returns to winning ways in round number 15 of the championship ahead of Marcus Byfeldt and Steff Herrmann, and then it will be Arjun De Vries, who on his debut for this season takes 4th place ahead of Brian Kelly and George Mattock. Mattock taking a huge result. Then Jeff Randall with a drag race here. Is he going to hold on to 7th? He is just ahead of Gareth Jr. with Gordon van der Bergen and Kevin Budgeon completing your top 10. Nathan Wade is best to rest in 11th place ahead of Peter Suapanki, and then it will be Simon Wareham, Roddy van der Meijden and Chris Wayne who complete your top 15. Wayne will be taking pole position for race number 2, just ahead of Daniel Otuga, who finishes 16th. And everyone's got all the hard work to do. Mario Farag takes 17th place. And it will be Joshua Harley who comes on through in 18th here. Just ahead of Tom Payne. And David Elliott will be your top 20 finisher in 20th. Ahead of Frankie D, who in the end will just miss out of the top 20. Missed out on that top 10. But he's got to take consolation of the fact he was on course for a top 10 here today. And it all went wrong in a close fight. But he's got the pace. He is growing stronger race after race. Well, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank goodness we do have a 5-minute warm-up session now, so I think we do need a bit of a breather for all that intense racing. The good news is we can quickly recap those race results from race 1. And in round number 15 of season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, brought to you on iRacing and sponsored both by Musical Money Limited and Old Git Racing Team, we got to see Adam Miles return to the top step. Victory by 2 tenths in the end over Marcus Byfeldt, who huffed and puffed and threw everything at it, but Miles was in control. Steff Herrmann in the end took home what was 3rd place. To be fair to the championship leader, that 3rd place sees his lead slightly cut down versus Miles and Byfeldt, but that 120-point lead is going to stand tall for the most part. We've still got another race to go. Arjun De Vries on his debut round, the Dutchman there finishing 4th, doing a brilliant job there to make sure he was able to stay well inside the top 5, bringing Brian Kelly and George Mattock home behind him, and Kelly just getting the upper hand of Mattock, but to be fair, both drivers really looking good in the race, particularly George Mattock, who seems to have found even more pace. Jeff Randall took 7th in the end, the Old Git Racing Team driver able to get ahead of the absolutely huge pack of himself, Christopher Gareth Jr., Gordon van der Bergen, Kevin Budgeon, that round off your top 10, and then best dressed Nathan Wade, and then at long last Peter Suapanki was 2 seconds behind that group. He was in 12th. The Old Git Racing Team driver from Finland finishing there just ahead of Simon Wareham by 4 seconds, and then Roddy van der Meijden was just ahead of Chris Wayne, with Wayne 15th place, taking pole position for round number 16. The Old Git Racing Team driver was then followed up by Daniel Otuga, who was only 2 tenths behind him at the finish line, but it wasn't enough on his recovery drive to try and make amends, and indeed Otuga right now is definitely looking at damage limitation here today. He was ahead of Mario Farag, and then we did see a further 17 seconds behind Joshua Harley, ahead of Tom Payne and David Elliott. Both drivers recovering after what was difficulties on the opening a couple of laps. Outside the top 20, in 21st place, it was Frankie D. 21st there, the American driver, and unfortunately not a top 10, but still, he can hope in race number 2 with the thought strategy and with the fact there's an extra 10 minutes, he might be able to make a miracle happen. He was ahead of Marcel de Hint and Pedro Manuel Caldera, who both finished a lap down after damage picked up on the opening lap. And Dennis Johansson, retiring with 8 laps to go, 24th there and 9 in race number 2. He's got it all to do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was race number 1, and we have got our 30-minute feature race coming up very shortly in approximately what will be 2.5 minutes time. And if you haven't had the chance yet to get yourself some liquid refreshment, or at least a top up, or if you do need that all-important bathroom break, definitely take it now, because when we make our way to the grid for race number 2, you won't want to step away for a brief moment, because if it's anything like all the feature races we have had this season, it is going to be one that is absolutely unmissable. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go silent for a brief moment and take some water myself, and I'll be right back with you. One absolutely intense race number 1, no doubt about it. And as all our drivers get themselves practiced and prepared for race number 2, well, what did we learn from race number 1? The key thing we learned is that this man, Adam Miles, he has got very good pace in clear air. The fact, over the distance, whilst you could argue Marcus Byfeldt and also Steff Herrmann were perhaps playing the game of follow the leader for the most part, we got to see Miles, of course, take that pole position in qualifying with the aid of a little bit of slipstream, we do believe. But either way, if not, he definitely showed in the race he was the leader in terms of pace, and he made it work on the final lap by simply putting himself in the right place at the right time to defend. On the Esses, being on the original inside to then defend all the way to the outside and back to the inside for Thunder Valley, that seems to be the trick. If you can make that happen, the driver on the outside has to invoke a little bit of understeer because of the off-camber nature of turn number 9, and that's what Miles was counted on, even when Byfeldt was able to follow him all the way through into the carousel, but always on the inside for the most critical corners. As Frankie D there, dropping slightly wide, practicing his pit entry, and understandably, he wants to get the pit entry absolutely rehearsed in preparation for this race, because it can make or break a race, a pit stop. We've seen that time and time again this season, particularly at Circuit Zandvoort, with the intensity of the fighting and how important strategy was there in the photograph finish 3 wide at the finish line. Indeed, one of the huge moments of the season, so 3 drivers separated by only what was a 100th at the finish line, if that. Well, maybe we'll see that again here today as we do look to Arjun de Vries. He's currently hidden his car behind a barrier there. Well, I don't know if he's camera shy, but it's definitely off at a distance there. You'll need a magnifying glass to see that, so we'll look away from it. He's decided to park up. I think he's had a spin coming out of turn number 9 when he gets himself back on the road. And in good time as well, ladies and gentlemen, because we need to get this show back on the road once again. The clock saying it's 15 seconds left. Race number 1 at Mid-Ohio had a terrific fight for the top 3 spots, but indeed they all steered clear of the rest of the pack, whereas the rest of the pack went on the jaunt and battled each other. Will it be the same with race number 2? It's time to find out as we head to the grid for round number 16. And so here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Our drivers make the way onto the grid, and this is how they'll line up. For round number 16 of the championship, we're top 15 inverted grid from race number 1 here today. It is Chris Wayne who takes the pole position for the Old Git Racing team, ahead of Roddy van der Meijden. The Dutchman in the end started second, knowing he's got pressure immediately from both Simon Wareham and Peter Soapanki. The Flying Finn there, he's definitely not had his share of highlights so far this season, but hopefully he'll be making it into a highlight today, albeit the Old Git Racing team driver will know. And behind him, he has the fast-charging Nathan Wade starting 5th, and Kevin Budgeon joins Wade on that 3rd row. Gordon van der Bergen starts 7th, I should say, for Sickhead Racing, ahead of Christoph Gerris Jr. And then round off that top 10, it's Jeff Randall for Old Git Racing Team and George Mattock. Outside the top 10, Brian Kelly begins the day in 11th for this race, ahead of Arjan de Vries. And then we do see Steff Herrmann and Marcus Byfeldt on row number 7, with Adam Miles completing that inversion of the grid, starting 15th. He's got Daniel Otuga for company, ahead of Mara Frag, but in fact, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to stop it there because the lights are going on already. It's time for the 30-minute feature. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the second time today as Chris Wayne rolls his way away. And as he does so, heading up towards turn number 1. Well, it's a good start from him, but looking further back, everyone immediately tuck it in. But Sir Panky this time finding that Simon Wareham has not tucked into the line. So Wareham goes a little bit defensive in towards turn number 1. Perhaps playing it safe there, not wanting to risk making contact early on. As all the drivers make their way up towards what we turn number 2. Will we see some early fights? Yes, we do. Roddy van der Meijden immediately inside here of Wayne wants to take the lead of the race off him. As they always got the way in, a bit of a block up there and some dust being kicked up. That was coming from the car there of, I believe, what was George Mattock. As they roll the way out of the corner now, all these drivers still together. Lovely start from everybody, but now we'll start to get close to the madness here as they get ready to battle the way in towards the Esses. And the blimp camera there showing the extent of the field as they all cover through. But as we do see George Mattock right now find himself in the 3 wide, getting ready to break. He has got Van der Berg on the inside. He's got what will be Randall right in the middle. And will they prove you can go 3 wide into the Esses as they all dip and tuck their way around. But at some point, somebody's going to have to give way here because it's going to get tighter and tighter until nobody can go 2 wide. What we can see is Nathan Wade breaking away from Budgeon, who's got Van der Berg for close company, and that's Randall going sideways there in the rear of the picture. He's out to the grass. How on earth has he been escorted out there? That's the question we need an answer to as quickly as we possibly can. But Jeff Randall there has become the first victim of the close racing here through the S's. Indeed, the madness suddenly kicking in, but we see David Elliott and Marcel to hit together, and Jeff Randall 3 seconds behind, wanted to get back into this fight and the train as quickly as he can. But your leader, Roddy van der Meijden, heads in towards the Carousel, and as he rolls his way on down, well, right now Wayne and Serpanki queuing up behind the two Old Kit Racing team drivers wanting to work together here, but it is Roddy van der Weyden who leads after one lap. So the order is as follows: Van der Weyden followed by Wayne and Serpanki, then it's Wareham in 4th ahead of Wade. Butcher sits in 6th, ahead of Van den Bergen in 7th. Then we have Garros Jr., Matuk and Kelly. They complete your top 10. Best rest in 11th, it's Daniel Otuga. And well, he's made some great ground, having started 16th. He's already up to 11th, so Daniel Otuga, you can never quite count him out. But Wareham here going on to the inside, looking to try and fend off Nathan Wade. But Wade will just sweep round the outside there. He can't shut the door immediately, as we do see Serpanki and Wayne swapping place on the round. But we are now into the great swap phase here. And I suspect fuel saving is now really going to be at the forefront of every driver's mind from this point onwards. And well, will anybody dare to go for an undercut knowing how much fuel can be saved in this group? Well, we're going to see a bit of scattering as Nathan Wade says, I want to move into second place, thank you. He tucks up the inside of the two Old Kit Racing team drivers, and we can see that's going to be Wayne got a little bit deep, so Panky puts in the middle of the road in the 777 and says to Wade, well, you can go for it, but I'm not going to let you through that easily. A little bit of contact side to side between these two drivers, and rolling away off the corner right now. And right now, it does seem as though it's all about temperament here. Well, further behind, you can see Van den Bergen as he runs a bit wide there versus Simon Wareham. To be fair to Simon Wareham, he may not normally be up in this group, but he is here today. And I can tell you one thing, there's certainly one driver right now. He is no stranger to getting in nice and nip and tuck with everybody, and he's really making Van den Bergen work for this. Neither driver wants to back off here. We know the Sickhead Racing driver, he really does want to establish himself far forward in this group. He does get ahead to the end, but he goes deep into the Carousel. Oh, there's contact! There's contact between the two, and it does send Van den Bergen around. Where does Wareham's car go? Thankfully, he goes onto the grass to the inside, so Van den Bergen can't get himself turned around. He's got to wait now until the whole field comes through, and as quick as that, well, we knew both drivers were very eager to make a point to each other, but in the end, Van den Bergen has come off the worst of the pair. But still, to be fair to Simon Wareham, he's not come off clean from that one either, so I think there'll be a conversation after the race. Meanwhile, Roddy van der Weyden in the bottom of your picture, we're looking back to the front of the field. He's got a 1.3 second gap here to Wade, Serpanki, Wayne and Budgeon. I wonder whether all this fight and this exchange back and forth is actually going to give Van der Weyden a major opportunity to pull some distance here. Of course, keep in mind, you always have to caveat the leader. If they do get some distance, you have to caveat it with the idea that they can't fuel save as easily compared to everybody else because they don't have a car to work with. So then you do have to make a decision if you're Van der Weyden. Do I back off and fall back to the group that's fighting, hoping I can lift and coast with them? Or do I just simply now go all in, try and run away? Well, Kevin Budgeon there goes very tight onto the apex of the turn number 4. You saw the brake dust going up there. That was a lock up on the front right. He was almost going sideways over the curb, and in the end he survived it, but he has let Wade go as a result. And Serpanki here right now trying to go around the outside to the inside. That's not going to happen. And right there, Chris Wayne is going to tuck in behind him. As we do say hello there to Player Gamer 363, who says this looks fun. And well, to be honest with you, we'd love to absolutely see you out here, Sir Blowing. I know you race GT3s on a regular basis, but I can imagine one day Vulcan Motorsports might want to give what is the Skippy a go, because I can tell you one thing, you are looking at some incredibly close racing, and it normally all comes down to what will be the final lap of the race. Although the strategy here is definitely going to keep things interesting, and we're expecting those pit stops to kick off any time around what will be about 7 minutes into this race, all the way through to what will be about 7 minutes left. That's how big the pit window is, and it will all come down to who wants the fuel save and who wants clear air to go on the attack. But as our leaders make the one for indeed, everyone now makes the one to another lap. We look back to Frankie D, who has moved already from 21st to 17th as he comes in towards turn number 1. Well, Mara Frag there was on the outside, and Frag is not going to be able to get that place back immediately as Wayne and Serpanki have George Matic up the inside of them. And that's going to be wide. It's going to go to the gravel. And Chris Wayne in the end shows off a bit of rallycross there. He drifts his way back onto the road. Does a good job in doing so. He doesn't lose as much as perhaps he would have, but he is going to lose a lot of momentum now on the run up towards turn number 4, and we can see Steff Herrmann there creeping on through on the inside. Your championship leader in the number 19, left of your picture, bringing Garros Jr. behind him, and Adam Miles as well. But intriguingly, Adam Miles watching the free wide in front of him here. He's got Des Johansson for company. Johansson, who started 24th, he is already up into 13th. And Johansson, of course, your season 4 champion. He knows what it's like to come from the back of the field. He's had to do it on several occasions, but that's why he has been a previous champion. He knows exactly the ins and outs. He knows all the dark arts of the Skippy. Move that rise through down into the corners. Right now, the number 10 driver here, well, he's got to be thinking, what is Miles doing? And he'll be wondering that, because Adam Miles, what do we know of his profile? We know that Miles does on a regular basis really think about the undercut strategy. He has a lot of confidence in his ability to make up race time in clear air. He's demonstrated that on several occasions, including, of course, at Circuit Zandvoort, also Alton Park. But What can he do for this order right now? As we see into the bits, that's Steff Herrmann. So Herrmann's going to be the first one to come in. That's a first. We don't normally see Steff Herrmann come in early. He normally comes in just before the midway point. But Steff Herrmann's seen something that nobody else has, and he decides, right, it's time to get out of that running order. I'm losing too much time. Unless he's just simply going for the low-risk option here, which is get out of the running pack, get clear air. If I lose out, oh well, I still get some points, but if I gain massively. Well, he's going to pitch it all there, and the championship leader right now has a huge gap which he can work with championship-wise. As being on Marcus Byfeldt here doesn't have that luxury. And we're on his way now onto the next stretch. When see Serpanki and Wayne. Well, Wayne's falling backwards. In fact, Chris Wayne's really struggling at this point. He's dropped away from Serpanki. He finds himself at a 3 wide. Here comes Miles up the inside for the King Kafuri. And meanwhile, that's going to be Gareth Jr. on the outside. And into the brakes they go. Dennis Johansson makes it 4 wide. And then Gareth Jr. takes a bit of grass with Dennis Johansson. Sweeps past all 3. There's a big lock up there. And that was going to go deep. That was Chris Wayne. Who then lock it up. Dennis Johansson immediately avoided contact. And Arjun De Vries is going to go around the outside of him now as well. So it does mean that for it will be Gareth Jr. and Chris Wayne. This has got a bit backwards. De Vries in the end does make up some ground. He moves from 12th to 11th. But Miles and Johansson, they are both sneaking their way through this order very succinctly. They're making this work out. But from them, we come back to Jeff Randall. And after his instant of what's the sequence of quarters earlier on in the race on lap number 1, he's on the back of Maramon Cladera. We'll have to see what happened to him because we've got a replay coming up. But not before we see him potentially go for the move here into Thunder Valley. Looking up the inside there of the Hatsune Miku machine. He's going to try and go all the way around the outside, and in the end he will just about squeeze in versus the Good Smile Racing Tribute livery, and he does do it. He just stops it in time, does Randall. As meanwhile into the pits. Well, we're not going to get any replays right now because Kelly, Miles, Gareth Jr., Wayne, Vonderbergen, they're all coming in. Well, it looks over here, a lot of drivers are pitching themselves to the idea of pitting together here. This is very different from what we normally see. Yes, we do normally see groups of cars come in, but this early and so many drivers coming in this early, when we've really just opened up that pit window, well, they all definitely are, I think, worried about what Steff Herrmann's doing. And Herrmann comes through the opening corner, and where this is going to put him, it puts him pretty much dead even with Adam Miles. So in the relative racing stakes, Steff Herrmann has pretty much stayed where he was before the pit stop, just ahead of Adam Miles. Miles will be happy about this because he does have the championship leader right in front of him, and Miles is the man trying to chase him down, as well as Marcus Byfeldt. But Marcus Byfeldt's still out there and up the order in 6th place. So now it's going to come down to how well these drivers work together to make up the time. But they have dropped Gareth Jr., who's fallen back to the tune of 4.5 seconds. So Gareth Jr. backwards, as is Chris Wayne, and they make the way onwards, but understandably, now the 36 driver's got to hope the two in front of him do fight. And here comes Miles at the inside of Herrmann, and Steff Herrmann immediately just lifts off there and says to Miles, you go for it, I'll follow. But with that, we're going to follow our way back in time and take a look back at what happened to Jeff Randall on the opening lap. So this was making the way through the madness of the Esses, and he made his way in towards what was turn number 6. Was there a bit of contact? There was on the rear of, I believe, that might have been the 36. That would have been the car of none other than Christopher Gareth Jr., and that wheel-to-wheel contact in, sending Jeff Randall sideways, and he looks back at him afterwards. There was a slight slide through Gareth Jr. I think that might be deemed a bit of a racing instant there because there was no foul play at all. It's just how close the cars were, and when they're that close, when it goes right, it goes very well. When it goes wrong, it can go very wrong. For me, on lap number 2, we saw this for Mario Farag and Frankie D. Well, Farag in particular here, making his way in towards what was the Keyhole, and as he exits the corner, did he just simply get the throttle down a bit too soon? The answer is yes. They decided to go trim the grass, and well, Frankie D did the same in the rear of the picture, and D was busy fighting with none other than what was David Elliott at the time, so they had a bit of a moment, the pair of them, and then we had this for Gordon van den Bergen later on the lap. And this was the big moment where him and Simon Wareham had a disagreement. All coming through and around. Went towards the Carousel. Wareham on the inside. Van den Bergen tried to turn through, but found Wareham was there. Too close for comfort, and it sent both cars sideways. But for Wareham, let's get the on board if we can with Wareham, because this was a very impressive move to the inside from the English driver. And well, he made his way in, saw the door was open, and Van den Bergen went deep. But unfortunately, the lines, they converged there. And I think Van den Bergen didn't realise that Wareham had made it that far alongside him. I think he was hoping that Wareham would back out further. He didn't have the momentum, but Wareham had nailed that approach. It shows you what is the multiplicity of the lines there at the Carousel. But unfortunately, both drivers coming into what was a bit of a scrape. But as we come back to your live racing, still 18.5 minutes left on the clock. Still plenty to come here as we look to your leader of Nathan Wade. And right now, what is the story at the very front of the field for those who have not pitted? The story, simply put, as we bring you the number of pit stops up on screen so you can keep track of who's pitted and who's not. This is a one-stop race, just to remind the uninitiated. Well, Nathan Wade right now leading by 9 tenths. Roddy van der Meyden is behind him, and van der Meyden, after what was quite an obstinate start, taking the lead very quickly. He has since now dropped back a little bit, and Wade, I think, is now trying to campaign away. Daniel Otuga, the man who started in 16th, he's up to 3rd. And that's why you never roll this man out when he has a bad race 1. He always finds a way to be right back up there come race number 2. And right now, Otuga definitely doing that in the 91. But what he's got to be thinking about at this point is how much fuel does he now save after pushing hard in the early stages. Mattock's then behind him, and then Kevin Budgeon. They've all been looking back and forth, and we know that both Mattock and Budgeon, they are well up the order, and I think they're both targeted the top 10 here, but they've also now got to try and work with the drivers in front. They can't afford to be as fighty as they have been previously, just because of the fact there is a risk here they may all be leapfrogged by those who pitted very early on. And as they roll the way on out, we do see a bit of offline there for Roddy van der Meyden. That's caused him to fall back into this group, but in fact he's still offline as the Dutchman makes his way over the rise here, now having to go defensive now. Versus Daniel Otuga, who gets very close to the back of him there, coming through into Thunder Valley. So for Roddy van der Meyden, it's all been out of sorts there through the Esses, and now he's going to lead this pack in towards what will be the Carousel, but it's going to be Otuga on the inside here, and he just goes for it. Daniel Otuga knows he's losing time, and it's a small pitch, it's a small touch, and they hit so flush it actually propels Otuga's car forward. As meanwhile, that's going to be an elbow out there between van der Meyden and Mattock. Mattock goes out wide as a result, and suddenly Marcus Byfeldt now looking around the outside here. My goodness, it is getting very scarily close, and indeed that contact between Otuga and van der Meyden on a different day, both cars would have been into the grass if not the barrier. That was the flushest contact between tyres that you will see in the Skippy, and well, that's how they can survive making contact there, but it's got to be pixel perfect. If it's not, suddenly these cars, they will get wrapped on each other, much like any open wheel racer. But that is going to be a look up the inside there from Kevin Budgeon, trying to make a move on Roddy van der Meyden, and well, suddenly I think the racer instinct is taken over here from the number 18 driver. He was plenty, well, we saw plenty of this from him in race number 1. He wants to go through it and have a lot more fun again in this one. But will van der Meyden oblige him? The answer is going to be yes, but not without squeezing him a little bit there. And then Sonny realises, wait, what am I doing? I'm only going to hold us all up if I fight him. As Mattock also says, well, can I come through as well? I think van der Meyden at this point says, no, you can't. I'll hold the outside to inside, but he almost goes to the grass again. Van der Meyden really struggling on that deep line into turn 4. It just upsets his rhythm through here. And, well, whereas other drivers have been able to make that outside line work, he definitely is not happy with it. He is able to get himself back together. You can see George Mattock immediately backed off there. I think he's worried that van der Meyden, if he goes offline like that continuously, it's going to cost him a lot of time. What's happening further down the order? Well, the two big names you need to watch are these two. And in fact, 3, let's not be rude, because Brian Kelly did come out ahead of them. How can we forget the American driver? He's currently in at 13th. He's your leading stopper. 1.08 seconds ahead of Adam Miles and Steff Herrmann. They're the ones who are right now trying to work together or do things of their own volition to catch up to the leaders, as Daniel Otuga is into the pit lane. So, here's your Dane of Dennis Johansson. So, the two Nordic drivers decide to part things up. And, well, I think the game here is simple as he rolls a bit forward. So, he misses pit box, does Dennis Johansson. He's now going to have to wait a little bit longer there. Does that cost him an opportunity? We will see. As the leaders make the way onwards, where is Kelly? There he is. Can we look to the blimp carry? Yes, we can. Where on earth is Daniel Otuga? He's already making his way down pit lane. And we'll keep your eyes to the right, slightly above the Skip Barber logo. You will see some cars come through. There is Brian Kelly. Meanwhile, Otuga now going past the pit limiter line. Is he going to be ahead? Is he going to be alongside? It's going to be the latter. They will be too wide as they make the way up towards what will be the Keyhole. And this is perfect strategy for Daniel Otuga. He has brought himself into the lead pack of the stoppers. And that means Adam Miles and Steff Herrmann right now are also right in amongst this group. So that's your top 4 on strategy versus what is your top 4 here on circuit, with Nathan Wade right now in a bit of a postcode of his own. But the problem he's got is he can't save fuel, so he's got to push. He's essentially got to do qualifying laps here in the hope that in doing so he will be able to bring himself out ahead of most rivals, alternatively bring himself into that lead group that's fuel safe by comparison. And to put the pit stop times in perspective, for Brian Kelly, Daniel Otuga, Adam Miles and Steff Herrmann, it's been 8.5, 9.6, 9.1 and 8.1 seconds. I suspect Nathan Wade's pit stop is going to be somewhere in the region of about 10 seconds, about 10 to 10 and a half, given the amount of fuel he'll have to consume here, and he gets no ability to save it back. But as he rolls his way into the carousel, does he decide to defect to the pit lane this time? And he does. So he decides to go early here. I think he's reacted. He might have a word in his ear from what will be the pit wall. And indeed, the team are saying to him, you need to come in now because there's a lot of pit stops playing out. You're at risk of essentially falling out behind the pack when all the stops are done. New fastest lap of the race, Marcus Byfeldt, as he follows Kevin Budgeon around, a 34.766. That's a very quick lap there in the toe. And we'll now make the way up towards turn number 2. We can see George Mattock behind. That's your top 3. And then Peter Suapanki a little bit further back. And Frankie D staying out long here. I wouldn't be surprised if D's approach is simply going to be to overcut everybody and just see whether that helps him in the long term. But where is Nathan Wade? Here he is leaving the pit lane. Where's Brian Kelly? Here he is making his way out of turn number 1. The gap is the best part of 1.2 seconds by the time they get to the keyhole. So Wade has brought himself the space to operate, but can he now maintain the gap to the guys behind him? If he can, then he might be safe for the win of this race. If he can't, then suddenly that lead is going to be brought back in. But at a distance of 1.1 seconds, and with no toe to help Wade out, he is now vulnerable. The slipstream is starting to take a hold, and that means Nathan Wade will gradually be drawn into the group of Kelly, Otuga, Miles and Herrmann. Now, will we see some reactionary pit stops from other cars? Will we see Marcus Byfeldt come in at the end of this lap? Could we see Budgeon come in? Will we see George Mattock come in? As we do see Daniel Otuga there up the inside of Miles, who lets it go. And Miles, to be fair, and Otuga, they know each other incredibly well. They've raced each other on this grid for several seasons, and with both drivers here, they have a very different art. Daniel Otuga is very much a driver who always wants to be leading, whereas Adam Miles, if he thinks he can lead and he can comfortably lead, he'll do it. We saw that in race 1. Otherwise, he does have multiple assets up his sleeve in terms of playing what is conservative versus playing a mixture of the two. He can keep people guessing until the very end. But we know he's got so much pace in clear air as well, and that's something that he's so renowned for in qualifying. Looking back to Gareth Jr. Meanwhile, they're in the second group. He's on the back of Roddy van der Meijden, Dennis Johansson and Arjen de Vries, with Steff Herrmann then 4 seconds up the road from this pack. So, those who have yet to pit, they've now got to understand, do they come out in this group or do they come out in the lead group? That'll dictate what places they are fighting for to the very end, unless we see a merge in the two groups. But right now, well, nobody else really showing any signs of making pit stops. As we look to David Elliott and Joshua Harley, they're your last runners. They're fighting over 23rd place, but to be fair, they're fighting for it and having a good time. As in Harley's going to go a bit deep there coming out to Thunder Valley. That's going to give David Elliott all the confidence he needs to sweep up through, and Harley sees it coming and decides not to fight it too hard. Back up the order, Gareth Jr. versus Roddy van der Meijden. Van der Meijden on the inside, defending. And Gareth Jr. trying to go all the way around here. And in the end, they're going to switch it back. And it is going to bring them back hot onto the heels of Johansson and de Vries, who want to try and work together themselves in order to break away from the two behind. They see they're fighting, and so they decide to do a switch around. That'll gain them some race time. Remember, you can't bump draft in these cars. You just simply have to use the slipstream and swap back and forth. But it's the swapping part, that communication between two drivers, which is such an important part in this process. And all of these drivers, they're not necessarily teammates. They're just doing it based on what is that mutual understanding that to go quicker to Skippy, you need to use the toe of the guys and girls around you. But this group of 4 stays back together as quickly as that. As meanwhile, we come back to your leaders. And into the mix comes Marcus Byfeldt. So does George Mattock. Kevin Budgeon stays out as Peter Suapanki goes on. What about Frankie D? Well, Frankie D is going to make his way through the carousel. He goes another lap as well. So he's decided the overcut is the strategy here. It is the play. So is for Kevin Budgeon. Is this the right call? Well, it will come down to where Mattock, Suapanki and Byfeldt come out, as we are waiting to see as what is Maron Cladero comes on in. But here is Nathan Wade right now, your lead on strategy coming along. Where's Byfeldt? He's almost at the end of the pit lane. In fact, Marcus Byfeldt here is already out beyond the limiter. I think he's going to be comfortably clear here in this group, or is he? No, he's not. He is going to be, by the end of the run towards the keyhole, that's going to be about 0.75 seconds the gap, so he's not safe. But Marcus Byfeldt almost leaping ahead there on the overcut strategy. Well, what an attempt that was. As meanwhile, here comes Daniel Otuga looking at the inside of Brian Kelly. He tries to go for the move there on the American driver. It's a bit too far back to go for it, but he's trying to send signals here. And well, with only 10 minutes to go at this point, we've only got 2 more stops that are needed. That's on Budgeon and D. And well, if Byfeldt was able to bring himself out the head of this pack by the best part of 7.5 attempts, understandably, I can imagine that Budgeon will be in this group. Meanwhile, Frankie D will be a bit behind it. He'll be in group number 2. And here comes Otuga up the inside of Kelly. He's going to go for it there. Kelly turns in, and Otuga absolutely throws the car to the inside and says to him, right, this is my place now. You can tuck in behind. Brian Kelly, I don't think he's got really an answer to that, other than to do exactly what the order is from there from Daniel Otuga. As we ride on board with championship leader Steff Herrmann, fighting in front of him. That's going to be Kelly and Miles here, 2 wide. But to be fair, I think both these drivers, with the way Otuga's forced his way through, they're now just trying to settle their differences. Herrmann sees the doors open there. He does put his nose in. He's going to get a good run out of Thunder Valley. And now going up towards the carousel, he backs off immediately there, knowing that they're going to interdict each other, and it's going to cost them a lot of time as Mattock is on the back of this group. So, Kevin Budgeon's into the pit lane as I look out my Conte booth window. Frankie D, meanwhile, has he coming in? The answer is no. D's going to go on to lead a lap of the race. He'll lead his first ever lap of the Skip Barber Community Trophy. And well, good on him for doing so, but he will know at some point he is going to have to come in and he will lose that lead. But to be fair, he'll be out there for now. Kevin Budgeon is leaving the pit lane, meanwhile. Where is Budgeon all this? He's going to be behind it. He is not going to be in this pack. He has lost out. I don't think he's been able to save as much fuel. And with 11.5 second pit stop, that has cost him the time. So, we have a top 7 now fighting for the effective win of this race. Here they all are on display. And, well, we can see Marcus Byfeldt and Daniel Otuga. They have quickly brought themselves through this group as Nathan Wade, meanwhile, drops back to 4th. But what is going to effectively 3rd place once D pits. Now we've got Wade trying to come back here versus Otuga immediately. And will these two fight each other? But surely if they fight like this, Marcus Byfeldt might be bought all the time of the day. As had a Bowlesby was, had a bit of a poor run. He's fallen back a bit further behind. I wonder if there's a bit of a fuel consideration there for some of the drivers. But Marcus Byfeldt right now trying to command this as Wade up the inside there. And Otuga right now refusing to back out. He's not going to give an inch, let alone a mile. And well, Wade's going to go deep. And Otuga is going to make his way through in the end. He's had to force his way out past the end. And the number 91 try knows that Byfeldt right now, if he's allowed to make a break, he will run off with it. But here's your leader, the man who has yet to pit, Frankie D. And let's give him a little bit of time in the spotlight, shall we? Given the fact this is the first time he's ever led a lap in this series. As he rolls his way on through right now after the heartbreaker what was race number 1, where he was denied a top 10, his first top 10 of the season. He now comes on down, and well, he's going to have to come into the pits here. That fuel tank is going to be running dry, and right on call, he comes on in. I suspect he will be outside the top 10, but to be fair, it's good to see him up there. And as we do have Dennis Johansson right now in 10th place, that will become effectively 9th based on when D's pitted. Well, you can imagine that he's bringing Gersh Jr., Arjun De Vriend, Roddy van der Meijden and Peter Suapanki along. I wonder if D's going to come out in this group because the car is making its way along the pit lane at the moment. In fact, it's not going to come out in this group. It's going to be a long way back. So Frankie D, in the end, is not going to be close enough to this. He might be close to Jeff Randall and Chris Wayne, intriguingly. There is D. You can see him off on the left-hand side of the camera. He will be ahead of this group. And, well, they will be the best part of what will be about 7 seconds off of the second group of Mattock through to Van der Meijden. So it's going to be a third group here for D, as we do see Gordon van der Bergen in the background, trying to be brought onto the back of it. About 6.5 minutes left of the clock. All the pit stops are done, and now all the action here is going to take place on the circuit all the way to the finish. So, settle down for this one, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to get interesting here, as immediately Daniel Otuga looks up the inside there of both Wade and also Byfeldt. So, Otuga wants to lead this race. He does want Marcus Byfeldt to feel comfortable. And, well, this is going to be a repeat of Summit Point all over again between these two, fight each other hard. With Adam Miles there watching the wings, and Nathan Wade, meanwhile, find himself now entrenched in amongst all this. We look back for the rear of your leader as he heads over the rise. And we'll come into the fall and in towards the valley. But the 105 there, very pointed, as they draw the way out of turn number 9. And with these cars, of course, whilst they can only get to the best part of 112 miles an hour, to be fair, the speeds that they're pushing on right now, even in normal road cars, you won't be doing them around mid-Ohio. Come through the left into right here, Otuga, the Swedish driver, just having to take his time, just having to think to himself, right, I've got the lead, what's next? And the answer is, he's now got to try and get everyone behind to start to fight. But everyone knows the aim of the game is not to fight until the final lap. Otuga wants them to get a bit more involved with each other. As we do see the 105 home to back off there, they all just simply settle into a long train. But who's going to be the first one to disrupt it? Well, Mattock at the back of the group. 1.1 seconds off the back of Steff Herrmann. He is losing that train gradually, pushing a bit hard. They're coming out of turn 1 to try and catch back up to it. He'll be hoping that they're all going to start to poke and prod each other as here comes Miles, looking up the inside in towards the Keyhole. No way in at the end, but he wants to get into that third place. He wants to try and get into Wade and Byfeldt's head and try to move his way to the top 3, so that way he can position himself for a move for the win at the very end. He wants to make it 2 out of 2 today, so that way he can gain that ground on Herrmann, which he desperately needs at this point of the championship. Not because it's over, but because every point is really starting to matter now. And we can see that as he looks into the inside here towards 4 versus Wade. He's going to go in, Wade's going to turn in, but Miles is there. 2 wide they enter. These two very familiar with each other. They have battled for championships in the past. Miles trying to go around the outside, back to the inside into turn number 6. Will Miles get it? The answer is yes, he does. Wade in the end just runs out of tarmac to be able to extend the corner entry. And Miles moves up to 3rd. Now, Marcus Byfeldt is the next target, with Brian Kelly surely at this point thinking, okay, he might be able to get past Nathan Wade, albeit Steff Herrmann's right behind him, so it's going to be that double-edged sword. But rolling off. Well, there's been a change in the pattern. This is where it's no longer swapping back and forth. It's no longer to me to you. This is all about positioning now for the final lap and try to chase that win, or at least that podium. Further back, Budgeon still ahead of Garros Jr. in the fight for 9th all the way through to 13th. That's completed by Arjun de Vries, Roddy van der Meyden and Suapanki. But as the drivers here make the way around, they are less inclined to fight each other as hard as the guys in front. As we do see here, Herrmann looking up the inside of Kelly in towards turn number 1. Championship leader decides it's time to try and go for 5th. Kelly gives them the space to cooperate, but up towards the keyhole, they'll be too wide and through. And look at how much time they've already lost to the cars in front. That is already 6/10 they've lost there. Kelly immediately backs out and says, no, Steff, go for it. I need you to catch back up to them. I don't want to fight this now. But behind, we do see Suapanki versus Van der Meyden. Suapanki getting ahead there of the Dutchman. So they swap the place on around, and then we come back to the leaders. Here is Otuga, Byfeldt and Miles. That's your top 3, with Wade being the 4th place man in this group. We are on to what is 3 laps to the finish based on the rate of knots we're going for, and here comes Byfeldt around the inside. Miles, meanwhile, the double draft plus the side draft. He now thinks about it, but in the end, just waiting, goes to the outside, and Wade comes back at him here. Now, can Miles get himself to the inside through 5? Yes, he can. Can he get himself around the outside of 6? No. In the end, he runs out of road. Wade doesn't try to force the issue there. I think Nathan Wade might have been able to there. He might have been able to do what Miles did to him on the previous lap, but Nathan Wade, I think, is deciding here it's not worth it. He knows that Miles right now doesn't want the fight for 3rd. He wants the fight for lead, and Wade would love to get on the back of that, so that's why he's just playing peaceful. But 2 more laps to potentially go, and I suspect the next lap it's going to be a little bit less peaceful, and then it might be all-out war in the final lap, albeit in skippy terms. It's going to look relatively peaceful until it's not. As they come down into the carousel, well, these 4 tries all there pushing for the late lines, but you can see each car in the sequence has to turn in a little bit earlier as Nathan Wade in takes the mother of all Apex curves at turn number 13. But on to lap 18 they go. 2 more laps remaining here at Mid-Ohio, and right now your top 4 could not be close, with Herrmann and Kelly not too far at the back of this, but as they all drift their way through that opening corner, we continue to ride on board with Nathan Wade. He's got his eyes on the prize here. They all have. These drivers right now know that it's not this lap that matters, it's the next one that truly matters. As Wade looks up the inside there, goes really aggressive on that inside line. That's more to make sure that he keeps Miles honest rather than make a move, as Herrmann and Kelly are still there with them. Further back, meanwhile, well, Kevin Budgeon has dropped a long way down. He's had it off track at turn number 1, I believe. We get a quick replay of what exactly's happened. So this was Budgeon at the time fighting with Garros Jr. Into one they went, side by side, and in the end took a lot of apex curb and a bit of contact between the 2, and it, oh no, that went wrong, and thankfully he got catapulted on the round and went racing immediately. I'm not sure if he's got suspension damage, but for Kevin Budgeon and Garros Jr., nobody wanted to compromise. They got caught at each other, and in the end they both got caught out. But I think for Kevin Budgeon, who drops down to 13th. Meanwhile, we come back to the lead group then, as they continue to push their way through the Esses. You see Herrmann's now right on the back of this as they drift sideways. A little bit further back, Suapanki versus Arjun de Vries. De Vries then making the move on Suapanki for 9th place, but Suapanki's now coming back at him. Suapanki trying to return to the top 10 for the first time this season in a long time. But these tries right now, they're all exchanging as Garros Jr. and Van der Meyden are now looking to battle each other. We do not know how much damage Garros Jr. has on his car in the 36 after that contact with Budgeon. But from there, back to leaders. 45 seconds left on the clock. Final lap commences in round number 16. And here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. The white flag is out. Which one of these 6 drivers is going to take the win here today in the feature race? Will it be Byfeldt, the race leader? Will it be Otuga? Will it be Miles? Will it be Wade? Or will it be Herrmann? Or will it be Kelly? Place your bets now, because come the end of it, you're going to see where you're being rewarded. But as they make the way up towards turn number 2, well, it's a scatter immediately. Otuga goes to the middle of the road. Meanwhile, Miles looks down the outside. Wade tucks tight on the inside here. Sees that Miles has left the door open. He wants to get into 3rd if he can. They're going to be 2 wide coming out the corner. This is going to prevent forward momentum for Miles. He is now going to have to deal with Wade. He does so. Cuts across there as soon as he can. Byfeldt, meanwhile, now has got Otuga approaching little by little, but he's going to make him go around the outside here, which is where he wants him to be. Miles now looks to make it 3 wide. Wade, meanwhile, looks to the inside. Can he make it 4 wide at the approach here? He's going to try. Here they all come. Do they survive? Wade backs out immediately, knowing that he's just been a bit of an antagonist, but Miles is still on the inside. Miles tries to go for it. 3 wide they come over the rise, and meanwhile, it's Byfeldt all the way around the outside to take the lead back. Now, Otuga here at this point has to tuck back in immediately, but Miles can't. He's still got Wade there. Nathan Wade right now is being such an annoyance to Miles, but that's all part of the game plan as they get ready to go into Thunder Valley. Meanwhile, the 2 behind of Herrmann and Kelly can't get involved. They're watching eagerly. They're waiting for a way in at the end, but as they come right all the way through towards turns 10 and 11, here we go, 2 wide with the leaders. Byfeldt and Otuga, they make the way through 10 into 11. Otuga's going to go up the inside, takes all the curb, but Byfeldt is still there. He's still got his nose in, and as the checker flag gets gets ready to wave. Who's it going to wave for? Well, Byfeldt gets back on the inside here. It's much like Miles at the opening race. And as they roll the way through, it's still 2-1 on the exit. Is it going to be Otuga? Is it going to be Byfeldt? Daniel Otuga's got a nose ahead at the moment as they cross the line. It's Daniel Otuga who takes victory by 7 thousandths of a second over Marcus Byfeldt. We have another photo finish, and Miles takes third place, though, and he can't quite take the win, but he'll settle for third in a win in race 1 ahead of Nathan Wade and Steff Herrmann. Brian Kelly takes 6th ahead of George Mattock, who has a clean end to his race ahead of Dennis Johansson in 8th. And then we do see Arjun de Vries taking 9th ahead of Roddy van der Meijden, with Christopher Garris Jr. best the rest 11th ahead of Kevin Budgeon, who'll be a bit frustrated with how his race ended. Jeff Randall takes 13th ahead of Frankie D, who enjoys a great recovery there from 21st to 14th, and indeed led a lap as well. Chris Wayne rounds off the top 15 ahead of Gordon van den Bergen, Peter Surpanky and Simon Wareham, with Pedro Manuel Cladera beating Marcel de Hint to the finish line in for 19th place. And then it will be Joshua Harley who comes on through just ahead of Mara Farag, with David Elliott and Tom Payne all finishing this race, ladies and gentlemen. All 24 of our starters have made it to the checker flag in this one. That's lovely to see. Well, let's give Tom Payne a round of applause. He comes to the line as well, because whilst this race hasn't gone to plan, still, to be fair to him, he has made his way all the way to the finish. He has had to go into the pits twice for repair work once and then for his actual stop. But to be fair to Payne, he's never given up, and that is true racing spirit right there, as we do cool things down. But goodness me, ladies and gents, so that really built up at the end. They kept us getting on the strategy in this one more than any other round, with so many drivers going for the undercut, and in the end it seemed as though the game plan was just for everyone to come in nice and early, apart from those who were daring to overcut, and it brought what was a huge run of cars together. But in the end, Daniel Otuga taking that win, having to force the move on Marcus Byfeldt, but found a way in, and Byfeldt could not find a way back. At least that's what our time tower's telling us, but it might be different when we look at those race results. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look at the results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are for round number 16. So in the end, it is confirmed in the battle of the two Swedes. The one who's going to be smiling the most will be Daniel Otuga. He now returns 2 winning ways in the 91 by 6 thousandths to the finish line over Marcus Byfeldt. What a finish there. Not the closest to this season. 2 thousandths has been the closest, but extremely close. Adam Miles, the end, he tried to find a way in, but Nathan Wade proved to be just a little bit annoying to him. But in the end, Miles had to make sure he settled for the third and could not quite get involved for the lead. Wade in the end took 4th place, a solid drive from him, just ahead of Steff Herrmann, who completed the top 5, and Herrmann again may not have taken the podium, but right behind his title rivals, and knowing that lead he has, he can afford to sacrifice some points. Brian Kelly took 6th place just behind him, wanted to get involved but could not, much like Herrmann, but he was comfortably ahead by 4 seconds over George Mattock, who enjoyed a great run of form today, the Briton ahead of the Dane of Dennis Johansson, who after a dismal conclusion to his race 1, came all the way from the very back of the field through to 8th place. Well done to him. Arjun de Vries took home at 9th, the Dutchman just ahead of his fellow countryman of Roddy van der Meijden, with them enjoying a battle on the final laps. They were in turn 2 attempts ahead of Christopher Garris Jr., who was best of the rest in the length after his contact with Kevin Budgeon, who in the end did finish in 12th place there, the privateer. And it was Jeff Randall, after that early incident, brought himself back to 13th for the old Git Racing team, ahead of Frankie D and Chris Wayne. Wayne completed your top 15 for the old Git Racing team, ahead of Gordon van den Bergen, with Peter Surpanky in 17th place there, enjoying plenty of battling, but not quite able to score the big points. He was ahead of Simon Wareham, who in turn finished 10 seconds clear. Pedro Manuel Cladera and Marcel de Hint, who just lost out on 19th, but round off your top 20. Then outside that top 20 was Joshua Harley, Mara Farag, David Elliott and Tom Payne. All of our drivers finishing on the lead lap, all of them making it to the very end. And what a race, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of ends, that brings all of our racing to an end here today at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. But do not fret, because this broadcast is not quite over yet. Very shortly, we are going to be taking a brief breather, and we are going to be trying to get together some of our drivers for post-round interviews. We'll get to hear their thoughts on a brilliant day of racing here at Mid-Ohio. But as we do step away, do let us know what's been your favourite moment or moments of today's races here in the US state of Ohio. We will see you again very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And what better way to kick off our interviews other than speaking with a man who chased both victories today, and he took one of them, plus pole position, but not quite the win in the feature.
In the interview last week, I knew this was going to be a tricky track to pass on, and I did the job of getting pole, and yeah, so it proved. It was really difficult to make a pass from any further back than third in a train.
Well, difficult to make a pass, but still, what we did see you overcome the difficulty of was in qualifying. I mean, it was looking as though it wasn't going to be pole position for yourself, but then with only 5 seconds left on the clock, you snuck in pole position. I mean, that was time to perfection.
Yeah, a couple of laps in advance, I've been doing the calculation to work out, if I finish this lap and then if I think it was Brian and Nathan by, I'll obviously have a slow lap, and then do I have enough time to do a fast lap? And just about the answer was yes. So I needed either Brian or Nathan to keep doing that final lap, so I had the slipstream. Unfortunately, I think Brian pulled off, but Nathan kept going. So I have to give half of the pole position bonus points to Nathan, I think.
Well, may have been aided a little bit, but to be fair as well, you had to put in the hard work, and it does look as though the Mid-Ohio circuit is a circuit you really do enjoy, because you absolutely fly around here, whether it's in slipstream or clear air.
Yeah, it's a very technical track, only really sort of one passing spot, but also, yeah, it just has a real sort of roller coaster flow to it. Every corner's just almost leading into another one. You don't really get much of a break around Mid-Ohio, so yeah, it's a track I enjoy. You've got to be switched on for the whole lap.
Well, switched on you were, and going racing in the sprint race, I know we normally talk about in the races the swap back and forth, but it did look as though in the sprint you really wanted to command the lead of the race. Was that the plan, given how challenging it can be to make overtakes here?
Yes, but also I can't really control what the guys in second and third do. So Steff first, and then I think Marcus after that. They both seemed happy with P2. I think we'd built a little bit of a gap over fifth, and then I think we built a gap over fourth. So it was sort of a trio by about midway, and I think they both put their sensible hats on and decided just better to let Adam do the work at the front and then attack him on the last lap, and that's what they did.
Well, some sensible heads being displayed, like you say. So a relatively straightforward race number one until that final lap. And just on defending, what we did see was a little bit of a look up the inside by your rivals through the last few corners. But just talk us through defending a little bit. It does look as though defending here, you can place the car in place, which makes it very hard to make a move.
Yeah. You kind of want the inside down. You've done the back straight and you've got the inside, and then you can hang it around the outside of the sort of the hairpin, as it were. Then you're on the inside for the right, but then they've got the inside for the left, and then you've got the double inside right. So you're sort of planning about 5 corners ahead. Do you want to be on the left or do you want to be on the right? And I think the answer is you want to be on the right hand side with 3 corners to go, and you obviously want to be on the right hand side as well for the final sort of sweeper as well. So I expect I defended to the inside and just had to hang it around the outside of some corners and hope Marcus gave me the room, which he did.
Well, in the end, you definitely managed to pull it off very nicely indeed to take the first win of the day, and going into the feature race, starting for 15th, we saw you make some very gradual progress, but today, unlike perhaps other rounds, we saw a lot of drivers coming in as early as possible, but for yourself, stayed out perhaps just a little bit longer than them before coming in on lap number 5. Was that the plan? Because it seemed everyone was onto the plan of, we're all going to try and undercut today.
Yeah, I can't speak for others, but I'd calculated 19 lap race, 14 laps flat out on the tank, so lap 5 was as early as I could do it without having to fuel save, and the progress was steady at the beginning just because I thought, we'll go with the flow. I'll do a load of fuel saving, which might jump me a couple of spots, but when you've only got 5 laps of saving fuel, it's less impactful than if you can save fuel for the first 14 laps and then do a quick splash and dash. But the pace in that train was so slow, I figured I'm just losing so much time here, even fuel saving, and there were a couple of guys getting away at the front, so figured stop as early as I could. I think I made up a little bit of ground on Brian, came out just ahead of Steff, and then we had a nice little train going, which sort of brought us back towards the front.
Well, in the end, the trains gradually converged regardless of the strategy, and we did see what was a top 7 fight for the win gradually become a top 6. In those last couple of laps, it looked so everybody was eagerly awaiting the final lap to come, although you did start to push a little bit. Although I do have to ask, I know you've been debriefing with Nathan Wade, it looks so the two of you, old championship rivals of course, both get on each other's nerves a little bit, especially Nathan trying to poke his nose in on the last couple of laps.
I mean, you can't blame another driver for poking the nose in on the last couple of laps. It's pretty much textbook Skippy. So we had a couple of 0x's, but it was nothing more than that. Didn't really disturb my line. So yeah, the last few laps, I think after all the pit stops had shaken out, I think I was P5. I had to get past Nathan. Then I got past Brian. Both, I think, in a similar way, just poke a nose while someone else in front of you is going too wide, and then pick a lane basically. Like, do you think the left side or the right side is going to make better progress? And so you're trying to follow the other one through and insert yourself into prize open a gap. And so that worked a couple of times, but then had Daniel and Marcus ahead of me. Plenty of speed, of course, from P3 down the main straight, but sorry, down the back straight. But they picked the inside and the middle, which left me the outside on both occasions that I had a run. So dangerous place to be, particularly with 2 laps to go, to trying to go 3 wide through that right hand and the following left. So I was happy to survive. Came away with 2 0x incident races, which would be a chunk of bonus points as well. So not too disappointed with P3 at the end.
Well, indeed, those bonus points always adding up, of course, and we've talked about them in the past and how valuable they are. So a brilliant haul, and the most important thing as well, finishing ahead of Steff Herrmann, the championship leader, and rounds are gradually starting to run out. We've got another 8 to go, and in a week's time, we make our way to California for the Long Beach Street Circuit. What's your target there?
Same target as ever. Try and put it on pole and just run away into the distance. But I know the other guys are not going to let me do that. So yeah, I think I went well. We have Belle Isle, I think, early in the season. I think I went well there. So Long Beach, another street circuit. I like the walls, and yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Long Beach.
Oh, fantastic. And well, we look forward to seeing you taking on the Long Beach Street Circuit in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Adam, one question, as always, I have to ask, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
And I will say, as ever, I think shout out to you for doing the broadcast. I will make myself some dinner, late dinner on a Sunday, and sit down and watch the race back, because you're a fantastic commentator. So I'm looking forward to watching it.
Well, thank you, Adam. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview, as always, and I do hope you get to enjoy that dinner, because it's definitely a winner's dinner, as far as I would say. A win in the sprint, pole position, and a third, solid haul points. We'll see whether you can carry on that momentum in a week's time at Long Beach. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So here and there from Adam Miles, ladies and gentlemen, and we're very happy with his performance today, and talking about the fact and the back and forth that he did see between himself and many of his rivals, well, it was all in the end going to be very close, and there's nothing bad about having such close fighting from start to finish. In qualifying, he was aided in that final lap. He admitted there assistance from Nathan Wade and some other drivers did benefit him, but to be fair, what a lightning lap it was, and talking about timing it to perfection. And in the sprint race, mentioned the fact that in the end it did seem as though the 2 drivers around him, that being none other in terms of what was Marcus Byfeldt and Steff Herrmann, both seemed to want to play the game of play peaceful and only really look at a potential chance of taking the lead off him on the final lap, because he can only control what he can do at the front of the field, whereas the 2 behind, it's up to them what they want to do. Now, as for what we did see in the run of what was the feature races, mentioned there the fact that coming from third to try and fight your way through to win, it's never going to be easy with the way you can defend from outside to inside and inside to outside through so many of the corners. But you're still happy with the third place, and only he did play it right on strategy, even if the strategy was surrounded by other drivers pitting much earlier compared to perhaps normal, but he was able to make it work in the pack. And it's some key points, and he goes Long Beach looking, as always, to close that gap down, and the momentum is gradually moving into his hands. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come, and we'll be back very shortly for a word with another one of our drivers. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our second interview of the day, we're coming to the man who definitely enjoyed battling quite hard with none other than Adam Miles in the second race, because joining me now is none other than Nathan Wade. Good evening to you, Nathan, and well, you were on the pace last week, and here today, my goodness, were you right in the thick of it, particularly in the feature race. How was it for you?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, a bit of sort of mix of both worlds, really. Sprint race wasn't too good from my point of view. Did a couple of mistakes. Sort of, I think, kind of ruined Daniel's race at the start. We had a little tiny touch, which gave me an almighty tank slap. And then, yeah, I ruined Frankie's race as well later on. Just sort of didn't sort of expect how slow he was going. Over turn 7, 8, 9, something like that. And I just sort of clipped the insides. I run over the curb. So yeah, apologies to both of them for that. But the feature race, yeah, much better. Definitely confident with my pace a bit more now. It's sort of slowly coming back to me now. But yeah, had a much better feature race. I went back a bit too much before the end and just sort of didn't have a chance to do anything towards the end.
Well, it's a bit unfortunate the way things did play out in the feature race, like you say, but flip side of the coin being that you'll be able to acknowledge what did happen. And if we talk about a positive with regards to qualifying, 7th overall in a very tight qualifying session, I mean, it looked so out there. It was going to come down to who picked up the smallest bit of draft at the very end rather than who was the quickest over a single lap.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not too keen on open quali because it's very chaotic, especially on these sort of small tight tracks like Mid Ohio. It's quite difficult to get you sort of want to be in that sort of three, like a pack of three, and just hope that you can each sort of give each other sort of 1 or 2 laps max. As long as they're sort of clean laps, then you'll know that you sort of put a lap in and you can get a sort of relative time on the board. As long as you're then in sort of that top pack, then it's okay, providing you don't make a mistake at turn 3 like I did on the sprint race. But I had a good couple of people with me. I had Adam and I think Brian with me as well in quali, so we managed to give each other good laps. So we're in the top 7.
Well, indeed, and with that, going into the sprint race, I know you talked about what happened only moments ago, particularly lap number 3, but just from your perspective, obviously, a lot of the action at Mid-Ohio really boils down to the opening couple of straights and that very tight Esses sequence where everyone gets condensed together. Just what's it like in terms of managing? It's always as if you have to sort of get the moves done before you get to turn 4, and then after that, it's hold on to your hats, folks, because we're going too wide all the way through if we're not in a single file.
Yeah, 100%. It's a really fun track to drive and have battles with. You can definitely go sort of side by side for most of the lap after the second straight. So yeah, coming back through the field after I had that instant lap 1, it was really good fun. Had a good couple of moves with some people, good side by sides and everything. So you just sort of have to. It's sort of like lanes, I guess. You know, you pick either the right or left, and you just hope that you can put trust in the other guy that you're not gonna either go too deep yourself or they're gonna go too deep, and yeah, you have to have some good clean racing.
Oh, 100%. And understandably, it did go a bit wrong in race number 1. I'm not going to dwell on that for too long, but what instead we will do is we'll look to race number 2. And in that one, given the fact that you started in the end of what would have been, if my memory serves me correctly, 5th on the grid for race number 2, very quickly moving your way to the front. And one of the big things we mentioned to Adam Miles only moments ago is you did love putting your nose in versus all the big names up there.
Yeah, 100%. Did really enjoy that battle at the end. I think the feature race could have gone a little bit better. It was just, from my point of view at the start, obviously I got into the lead quite early and I just didn't have another car with me. So I was just sort of setting raw laps and I didn't have any draft. I think if there was probably another sort of, if I had like, say, Adam with me, I think both me and him could have got away. But I just sort of was watching the relatives to see where the other guys pitted. Once I saw that everyone else had sort of pitted, I was like, I'll try and get out in a gap with them. I did overpit ever so slightly, but managed to come out with the, I think it was about a second ahead of the 3. Was it Brian, Daniel, and Adam? And then, yeah, from then on, I was trying to say good laps. I had a couple of pants laps after those pit stops, which brought the others back in. And then, yeah, I just dropped back to 4th, which was a mistake. I should have tried and defend against Adam a couple of times so I could stay in that sort of 3rd position, because I think that's sort of where you want to be towards the end. providing you can get turn 3 done.
I see. Well, in the end, not quite able to take the lead and hold on to it, but what we did see was you fighting hard, and Adam was mentioning only moments ago the fact that when you are further down in that group, it gets harder and harder to fight, but still, every time Adam went for a move, you tried to go for a WOD on him as well. I mean, we know that you two have a bit of a rivalry from previous championships, but it's almost if you're saying, look, Adam, if you dare leave the door open, I'm just going to take third place off of you.
Yeah, 100%. It's good fun here. That's what I mean. You can go side by side everywhere, and if you are sort of in that sort of P4, P5, the only way you're going to make a move is at those sort of tight corners. Wait for the 2 leaders to go side by side, and it'll slow down sort of P3, and that's when you sort of want to tip your nose in, and just try and make a move. Obviously, make it safe, but yeah, just try and make a move. So yeah, apologies to Adam for a couple of 0x's because we did get a couple of little contacts, but nothing major to ruin each other's race. So yeah, good fun.
Oh, and well, with the good fun you've had today, it's been some solid points from the feature, and we head to Long Beach in a week's time. What can we expect for you on the streets of Long Beach?
Hopefully not in the wall. I did used to really love that track. It used to be one of my favourite back in the day. So I'm hoping I can get some practice in this week, get back up to pace, and then yeah, hopefully fight for some podiums or even a win.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we'd love to see you back up there chasing those podiums, if not the outright win in at least one, if not both of the races. And well, we look forward to seeing that next time out. But just before I do let you go, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
As always, just yourself for the wonderful broadcast you always put on. Jeff for running the league, as always, smashing league, great fun every Sunday night. And then everyone else today for the good racing. And then just apologies to Daniel, Brian and Frankie.
Oh, fair play. Well, the apologies will be appreciated by your rivals, but still, Nathan, everyone knows you don't mean it intentionally in terms of making it happen. It's what happens with close-knit racing, and we hope to see plenty more of it from yourself next time out at Long Beach. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Cheers, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Nathan Wade, the privateer today, where it was a little bit bumpy, it wasn't 100% clean, but to be fair, he's owned up to what's happened and he's moved forward, and that's absolutely great to see, and he definitely really does have the spirit of the Skippy right in his mind every step of the time. And to out there in qualifying, the fact, not the biggest fan of the 10-minute open session, but to be fair, that's why we do have the variety of qualifying sessions. There's a little something for everyone, and some will be stronger at some session types versus others, where it be the chaos of an open session versus perhaps the more pressured one-lap shootout, but it's all part and parcel of the fun. However, when he went racing in the sprint, despite some early gains, it all went a bit backwards, and in some contacts definitely cost him dear. So in the end, attention had to be turned to what was the feature race, and there we was able to make greater progress. Unfortunately, despite the strategy wasn't quite able to come out on the strategy leading to the point he was able to break away, he got reeled back into the pack, but in the end the game plan was just to try and make sure he stayed in the fight for the podium spots, and he definitely did. But for Nathan Wade, not quite a podium today, but he'll be looking for plenty more in a week's time at Long Beach. But we've got more interviews to come, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us because another interview is just around the corner. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to our third interview of the night, and it is none other than what is our ostentatious orange machine of George Mattock, as he does join me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, George. And well, what a day for yourself today. 5th in qualifying, 6th in the sprint, 7th in the feature. You were firing on all cylinders here today. You must have been pleased with how you were doing.
Hello, yeah, it was a very fun race, and good qualifying, good first race. Just a shame about the feature race. It happens every time I talk to you, Paul. I either get too much fuel or too little, and this time I put in about a litre less than I needed, and I was fuel saving for the last like 6 laps. It was half, 50% throttle down the straight. That was very touch and go, and I was coughing as I came across the line to finish the race. So that was extra stress that I didn't need, but. No, I was very, very happy, and I enjoyed all that racing. There was carnage left, right, and centre, and I was just lucky to have relatively good pace and make it through.
Oh, fair play. I mean, the pace was definitely there, no doubt about it. But just talking about what was the challenges. Firstly, let's talk a little bit about qualifying. 5th overall, a very good qualifying session for yourself, and at one point even provisional pole, but was relegated right towards the end. Were you expecting to be up there today? Because even in practice, we saw you were one of the top 6 times.
Yeah, I think I could have probably been a lot. Well, I probably could have been on the front row, to be honest, but it just so happened with the timings that it was myself and Marcus were towing each other. He'd given me a lap, and I knew that he was going to want a lap back, so I gave him a lap at the end, as in gave him the slipstream. And I don't know where it put him, third or second or something. I didn't do a perfect lap at the start of that lap, so I think had there been another lap, that would have been ideal, and I could have obviously gone faster, but obviously everyone else would have gone quicker. But yeah, I felt like the pace was there, but I didn't really feel like I could show any of my pace in the feature race. To be honest, it was mostly about getting through the pack straight away, avoiding the collisions. There was multiple 3 wides where I was in the middle of a sandwich, and I knew that I couldn't go anywhere, so I had to back out. Just trying to race smart and not ruin your race on the first couple of laps.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I have to say this is not a critique, by the way, but for somebody who wanted to race smart, in the sprint race, we did see you in most of the 3 wides alongside Kevin Budgeon. I mean, the 2 of you, you must have magnets in the cars because you're attracting other skippies to you, and it's not going out in style anytime soon. I mean, what does it take for the viewers at home to know when you should be in the 3 wide versus when it's time to back out?
We love the 3 wide. We've got to give you some entertainment, haven't we? So yeah, it's tricky because I'm actually on a single monitor, so I don't have 3 monitors. So I'm almost having to use the buttons on my wheel to look left and right sometimes. But during those ones, I could see, and I knew that they were there. And you have to hold your line and just be fair and make sure you don't run wide, because otherwise the guy on the outside is going to go off. Don't turn in too early because you've got a car there. So you're all trying to hold your exact lines. Sometimes it doesn't work. There was other incidents in the race with other drivers that it didn't work. And especially on cold tyres, it's so hard. You have very little grip at the start of the race, but later in the race, 3 wide is, I mean, look at the front guys on the last lap; they were 4 wide almost. So they put everything on the line, which is giving everyone at home some entertainment.
Oh, 100%. And to be fair, you entertained us with a 6th place finish in the sprint, only 3 seconds off the race win, one of your finest runs so far. And then in the feature, I appreciate it didn't go quite right on strategy, but we saw you right up there in the early stages. And strategy-wise, a very interesting split today. We saw half the leading groups come in pretty much as soon as humanly possible, and then for yourself and a few others opting to stay out as late as possible. Was that part of your plan?
Yeah, I didn't want to be stuck in the pack, to be honest, because I knew that I had good raw pace without any slipstream. I could be top 3, 4 in terms of pace. I mean, you look at the practice times, but I think it was just a case of trying to not pit and come out in the middle of the pack. That would ruin your strategy. And I was looking behind to see where Brian came out, because Brian was racing with me at the start. He pitted very, very early, and so I was keeping an eye on what he was doing. And I felt like once I could clear the guys in front of me, I think it was myself and Marcus then were behind Nathan. We could just hold and pull a bit of a gap and try and get ourselves closer to Nathan. So otherwise he was going to run away with it. But yeah, I was always going to run to the end, and I just didn't. If I'd have put in another litre of fuel, it might have been another second or so in the pits. That would have done me, but I literally had to lift and coast. My times were like 8/10 slower for about 5 laps. It was quite scary. I could see Dennis was also gaining on me at the end. It was like 5 seconds the gap, and then it was, what was it, half a second across the line. So yeah, strategy needs some work, but hopefully get some time to practice in the week and work on what my strategy is going to be for Long Beach.
And well, that nicely segues us to talking about Long Beach. I mean, you're now into 12th in the championship. You're rising steadily and heading towards the top 10. Can you break into the top 10 at Long Beach?
I hope so, but I mean, I had some pretty terrible. The first 5 races didn't really count for me, so they're all terrible. I got involved in some silly incidents, got wiped out by a couple of people on the opening lap. So I'm not worried about the championship. I'm worried about fighting for the wins and podiums and being at the top. And Long Beach is an amazing circuit. It's one of my top 5 tracks, I'd say, on iRacing. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I haven't driven there for, again, several years, a bit like today's circuit. But yeah, really looking forward to that. And I know there's a lot of people in this session that love Long Beach, and there's no room for error there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing you showing that love for Long Beach in a week's time and giving it your all to chase those podiums and wins. But George, just before we let you go, is there anyone that you'd like to give a mention to on the broadcast tonight?
Shout out to you, Paul, for putting the broadcast on, and everyone in the front pack who was racing. Very clean, very fair most of the time. And shout out to my partner, Maddie. She'll be watching this back. And yeah, everyone who competed in the race and watching at home. Thanks a lot.
Well, George, a big thank you to you as well for joining me in the interview. It's always great to see you having fun out there and giving it your all. We look forward to even more of that at Long Beach and see whether you can make it all the way to the top step of the podium. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, see you.
So hearing there from George, he's definitely having a lot of fun out there today, although gutted at not putting the right amount of fuel in the feature race. And you can see it in the pictures here as he's gradually falling away from that lead group. The realisation that litre that's missing was the litre that stopped him being able to stay in that group. And who knows what could have happened. But we have to go with what we know. And George Mattock today, in qualifying, very happy with his performance, hoping there was one more lap, but realising as well as if he got one more lap, everybody would have got one more lap. And still, not dwelling on the fact that he was fifth when he could have perhaps been pole, but in the end, a fifth place that he moved forward from, and he was able to have fun in the sprint for sixth. In the feature race, seventh place, well, it was a hard-earned one, but there was more on the cards, but I suspect he has yet to hit his full stride, and he's getting closer to it. And at Long Beach, could we see George Mattock on the podium? Well, we'll find out soon, ladies and gentlemen, because it's only a week away. Next up, we've got one more interview to come. Who's it going to be with? Well, you're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interview of the evening, debutant from today, it's none other than Arjan de Reed, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Arjan. Good to have you with us, and great to see you making your way onto the grid. Solid pair of performances today, fourth in the sprint, ninth in the feature. You look like you're having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, thanks, man. That was basically the goal. I started up the Skippy yesterday again, I think, or 2 days ago. So I figured let's see how it goes. Found this league and yeah, I started enjoying myself. So it was pretty fun.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I've got to ask then, so your background in sim racing or even real life motorsport as well, in case you're doing real racing, have you had a lot of familiarity with the Skippy, or is it literally just 2 days you've been racing it now?
You're maybe familiar with 2K World Cup that was run in the past?
Ah, yes.
I've been twice a champion there, so I had some experience back in 2017, I think. And then I think the last race I did competitively in a skip was in 2019 or something. So, yeah, I have some experience, but not recent experience. So I'm a bit rusty still.
Oh, fair play. Well, to be fair, your experience may be from the best part of 7 years ago, but I can already tell you've been shaking off that rust. Let's talk a little bit about qualifying. Fourth on the grid. Early stages of qualifying, you were looking very quick out there. Were you happy with that fourth place, or do you think you could have done better?
It's okay. I think I had Steff in my draft. I was trying to leave a bit of a gap. Open quali is not something I'm really used to, so finding the right spot within all the people, and then yeah, hoping people aren't getting in the way in certain corners or spinning out, and it was pretty okay. Steff was in my draft, and I think he didn't take pole position. He put it on pole at that time, and then Adam improved, I think. But yeah, no, especially coming back and only had like practice for like 45 minutes on this track was pretty decent. So can't complain.
Oh, 100%. I'd agree with you on that. And if that's how you start after only a limited amount of practice, I can only imagine what more practice is going to do for you. But coming onto the sprint race, we saw you in the end. The lead group, the top three, gradually broke away as the race unfolded. And in the end, you were really the best of the rest in fourth, leading the rest of the pack through. Are you used to that? Or was that one of those situations where it's sort of, why can't I stay with the top three?
The latter one. I figured out I'm apparently out of the hairpin on the back straight. I was fairly slow. And then every time, normally you can hang in a draft. but I'm for whatever reason I couldn't keep up. So I need to figure that out. And I had the same struggle in the second race already. So it's apparently a weak part on this track for me, but we'll figure that out.
Or fair play. Well, a weakness identified, but a fourth place all the same. And then in the feature race, a bit of a different story. We got to see, of course, in the early stages, a bit of shuffling around. It got quite fierce out there. And for yourself, you opted to be one of the last to appear in the sort of split on strategy. Was that always the plan?
Yeah, figuring out how much to add, all the kind of stuff. Again, not used to it. I did it back in the days, but and normally when you're driving official races, you don't need to pit. I knew I had to add 2 liters, but I needed to calculate, and I was doing that, and it wasn't. Well, I need to be better prepared for next time, I guess.
Oh, fair play. I mean, anyone who can do the high speed of fuel mathematics whilst also racing the Skippy deserves a round of applause, yourself included. But in the end, once all the strategy was done, it did bring you back out in the second pack of cars. And much like in race number 1, in a way, you end up being really the leader of that group for some time. So I suspect part of you is probably thinking, well, the sprint was just like the feature. I just happened to be the leader of the second group this time.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, first race in the sprint, I already was a bit playing with giving certain people draft behind, so they could fight, and then I was trying sort of to do the same in the feature race. I know Dennis from way back. I was quite around him, so I felt comfortable racing around him, knowing how he races. Trying to follow him. I needed to. I think I needed to save like a few laps or a few corners of fuel, so I needed to hang on with him. And then he got away. I think it was 2 people spitting out in front of me, and then that created a gap. But yeah, all in all, pretty decent race.
Indeed, decent race and a decent start to your time on the grid for Season 5. Next week we do head to Long Beach. Can we expect you there? And if so, can we expect you to be even quicker?
I have never driven Long Beach, so that will be fun. I think I bought it back in the days as a tech track, and well, maybe I drove it once or twice then. But I'll figure it out, and I'll probably join. So, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. We'd love to see you on the grid in a week's time to see whether you can achieve your first podium then. But Arjun, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Obviously, you for doing this, and Jeff and stuff, and all the people for organizing this stuff. It's pretty great to have a bit of an active skip community again on iRacing, so that's really nice.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure, and it's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Arjan, we'll leave it there, but congratulations on your return to the league grid today and getting to see you out there, giving it your all. A podium may not have come into your hands, but I'm sure you're going to get another chance at it next time out at Long Beach. But until then, have a great rest of your evening. So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Arjan de Vries, and the privateer absolutely enjoying himself out there. And, well, no doubt about it, coming into this with quite a bit of rust to shake off. But the flip side of the coin, the fact all that experience of previous years dating all the way back to 2017 in what was the Major Leagues back then, a 2-time champion in that. Well, one thing for a champion is it never goes away, the ability to deliver quick, fast laps and also that comfort factor in the Skippy. And as he made his way up speed today in qualifying, was very happy with his performance, albeit knew there's a bit more time out there. And the same can be said in the sprint race, a bit unfortunate to be dropped by the top 3. And he was talking about there the fact that in the end, he thought he could stay with them. It didn't work out, and it was all down to his exits out of the Keyhole or turn number 2. This run onto the long back stretch, he just wasn't getting the exit he needed, and it was the same in the feature race. However, in the feature race as well, not used to the fact needing to essentially work out the fuel and put fuel in the car, so he had to get used to the mathematics. But to be fair, as baptisms go in the series, this has definitely been a good one for Arjun de Vries, and I suspect at Long Beach, he's going to be a name, should we see him there, which we shall, I believe. He is going to be a name that we are going to be enjoying talking about right at the front of the field. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews. And in fact, let's give you a quick reminder of who we've spoken to today. And we had a brilliant mixture of interviews, no doubt about it. 4 interviews today. We got to hear firstly from Adam Miles, your winner of the sprint race and podium finisher in the feature race. But we then came to Nathan Wade, who had a bit of a difficult sprint, but he made up for it in the feature race, no doubt about it, poking and probing Adam Miles every step of the way. George Mattock, we also heard from our third interviewee. He was the man who in the end, number 29, 5th, 6th and 7th, progressing not technically in the right direction, but still a very consistent day, no doubt about it. And Arjun De Vriend, we just spoke to him, a returner to the grid after a long time out of the league format, but great to see him back and glad that he's been able to get on the grid to enjoy the racing with us. And well, the Dutchman was absolutely flying high. A huge thank you to all 4 of them for joining me in the interview room, and as always, a big thank you to them all for their time, because it's been absolutely incredible to see them out there giving it their all, not just in the interview but also on the circuit, and well done to them for their performances. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Skip Barber Community Trophy or how you can get on the grid and join this series as it's in progress or in a future season, or just want to get to know the team behind the scene, well, for all that and more, you need to join the official Discord. Invite link available on screen, and if you do, you'll be able to get on the grid with us as soon as humanly possible. However, if you don't necessarily want to go to there, well, you can always stay tuned to these broadcasts on a weekly basis by subscribing to the Paul Walsh Productions YouTube channel. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, who do include, of course, Musical Money Limited, the quick, easy and safe way to turn your unwanted musical equipment into money. Because no matter what your equipment may be, if you want to sell it, Musical Money is there to buy it, thereby taking the hassle out of selling your unwanted musical equipment. And with their groundbreaking website, as shown on screen, selling your musical equipment could not be easier for a website which has put the user experience at the core of its design. So why not check out musical-money.co.uk today to find out more. We'd also like to say a thank you to our other sponsor for this series, and that is, of course, the Old Git Racing Team. Now, established in 2024, the Old Git Racing Team aims to prove that age is just a number in the world of racing. Headed by Jeff Randall, the team races in multiple disciplines, but is especially dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine, or the Skippy that we've seen today. Regardless of the car, however, they aim to keep their racing fair and close, whilst also respecting the fact that mistakes can happen to even the very best. And if you'd like to know more about the team, be sure to head to their Twitch channel, as shown on screen, and that's at www.twitch.tv/OldGitRacer, where you can check out their racing, including their onboard perspectives from the Skip Barber Community Trophy. And a huge thank you to them as well, alongside Musical Money. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, with a big thank you to our sponsors said, what exactly lies ahead? Well, next up, it's rounds 17 and 18, and where we are next time? Well, of course, we are making our way to downtown Long Beach in the Californian state of the US of A. And there, in what is officially titled the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, the walls will loom large. It will feel much like our trip to Belle Isle Park at Detroit only a few rounds ago. And the question as we complete our time in the US of A is who is going to be able to run it close to the wall and not make any mistakes. In the championship, we have seen that Steff Herrmann's lead has been slightly cut, as Marcus Byfeldt and Adam Miles have both put on performances that have been able to stay, for the most part, one step ahead of the championship leader. But rounds are running out. We've only got 8 rounds to go. Drop scores are going to become an increasing factor, and right now Steff Herrmann knows all he's got to do is control the narrative for a few more race weekends. But will it be as simple as that? Well, the only way to find out is to tune in next time on Sunday the 15th of February 2026 to see how the story continues in Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Skip Barber Community Trophy. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and remember, as always, until our next rounds of racing, to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.